Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes Master of Water. Release part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Thick mist had settled oppressively over the bridge. Naruto could barely make out Haku's delicate, strangely feminine features. The other ninja was still speaking, and Naruto had, in a move that would have amazed nearly everyone who knew him, chosen to remain silent. Indeed, he didn't know if he could muster the words to speak even had he wanted to. Haku's pained words resonated uncomfortably in Naruto's mind and soul. Do you know the pain of living without a dream? The knowledge that no one in the world needs you? Those eyes, once full of warmth and determination, while they had casually spoken amidst the trees, were now empty and dull as they bored into him. What are you trying to say? Naruto ground out, his confusion and anger reflected on his face. Zabuza-san has no need of a weak shinobi. You stole my reason for existing. Haku was smiling, as if amused at a secret joke. Naruto was quickly coming to realize that his smile, his expression, and his tone of voice were all masks under which Haku hid his true feelings. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Why? Why do you fight for the sake of that guy? He couldn't comprehend it. Zabuza was a terrible person, while Haku was in many ways a reflection of himself. So why? He's an evil ninja, who gets money from bad guys and does terrible things. Naruto's voice grew louder, and he began to gesture angrily. Is that no-brow the only precious person you have? Haku was silent for a moment before answering. Once, a long time ago, I had people that were precious to me. His eyes dropped. My parents. As Haku's story unfolded, Naruto couldn't help but feel the sense of kinship with the tragic ninja grow. It was a horrifying story, and a part of Naruto, the part that was still innocent, couldn't comprehend that humans could be so cruel to each other. Another, larger part of him understood all too well. Naruto listened numbly as Haku dully described the death of his parents. When I came to, I realized that I had just killed my own father. And at the time, I thought of myself as I had no choice but to think of myself as being. I realized that that was the most painful thing a person could feel. The most painful thing? Naruto's voice was small as he voiced his query. The feeling that your existence is needed by no one in this world. Haku's dead eyes haunted Naruto, almost as much as his words did. He's the same as me. Naruto didn't know how to describe the strange melange of feelings that thought stirred within him. He was relieved that others like him existed, that he wasn't alone in his pain. He wanted to weep in grief, for the very same reason. He wanted to reach out to Haku, but at the same time he was terrified. He understood this person. Conversely, Haku could understand Naruto. You said this to me. I want to become the #1 ninja in my village, and have everyone recognize me. When someone who accepts you from the bottom of their heart appears, that person should become the most important person to you. Zabuza-san knew that I was from a family with a bloodline limit, yet he still raised me. He wanted this ability that everyone else hated. Haku's head lowered in remembrance. A brat like you won't be needed by anyone, and you'll die a beggar. Haku smiled up at the towering Miss Nin. You have the same eyes as me. Zabuza stared at the tiny, hollow-eyed child for a long moment. Kid, do you want to be needed by someone? Zabuza asked gruffly. Can you give everything to me? Beggar child and Jounin continued to match gazes. Haku gave a single, slow nod. Then, starting today, your ability is mine. Haku rose and moved to Zabuza's side. The man patted Haku's head once with his large, calloused hand before drawing Haku close. Come with me. Haku's expression twisted in bittersweet sorrow. I was happy. Haku still remembered clearly the night that they had left the country of water. But that memory brought Haku no happiness. He had failed in his pledge. I'm sorry, Zabuza-san. I couldn't be the tool you wished for me to be after all. Haku's head lifted, and he began to walk towards Naruto. Naruto anxiously took a step back. Haku stopped and gazed down at him. Naruto-kun, Haku spoke, please kill me. Naruto couldn't understand, how a person could serenely ask for death like that. Haku had given up. Why was a single defeat so unacceptable? Did Zabuza really mean that much to him? Please kill me. Naruto clenched his jaw as Haku repeated the request. Dull eyes stared down at him. Why are you hesitating? Naruto looked away, pained, and stepped back. I can't believe that stupid story. Weapon? Tool? Someone like that is a precious person to you. That's okay with you. His hands rose, partly in anger, partly pleading. That's not right, it can't be. Is it wrong? Haku's question, so contradictory to Naruto's inner thoughts, stopped him in his tracks. What? He drew back in surprise. How is that wrong? Naruto's expression wilted. But that's. Zabuza-san had hopes for me. He needed me. Memories flashed through Haku's mind. But now, I have lost the purpose that made me who I am. Zabuza-san will no longer need me anymore. Naruto's face reflected his despair. That's why I am asking you. Haku paused. Now, hurry. Haku continued almost urgently. Naruto took another step back, agonized. Haku's eyes narrowed slightly. Why are still hesitating? Naruto growled in frustration. I don't understand. he shouted, "is remaining strong the only reason you have for staying in this world?" Haku's serene expression never wavered, nor did the other ninja offer an answer to Naruto. "You could have made people recognize you for something else other than just fighting," he finished, his tone pleading. "The day I met you in the forest, I felt that you and I were alike," Haku said. "That's what I thought." Naruto's eyes widened in shock. "You should understand." Haku paused for a moment before continuing. "I'm sorry that I have to soil your hands." Is this the only way?" Naruto agonized. What was this feeling, welling up inside? Despair? Defeat? Naruto couldn't name it, but he knew for sure that he didn't like it. He didn't like the black ball of misery that had settled in his stomach. He didn't want to kill this person. Haku wasn't his enemy. He wasn't a faceless shinobi anymore, not just some evil nin that Naruto had spent years daydreaming about beating into the ground. Haku was Haku. He killed Sasuke, whispered something in the back of his mind. That's true, but still, yes. There was no doubt in Haku's voice or posture. The other boy was serene in the face of death. The misery grew bigger and bigger, and Naruto waged a brief internal war with himself. Naruto closed his eyes. If I had met you in some other place, we might have become friends. There was a lifetime worth of pain lurking behind Naruto's words. Why did it turn out to be like this? When Naruto's eyes snapped open, they were filled with deadly determination. His hand dropped to his right thigh and drew a kunai. He was scarcely aware of that first step towards Haku, but he thought that he could feel every minute detail of the cold, damp handle of the kunai as he drew it from his leg holster. He was moving, perhaps as fast as he had ever moved before. Chakra pumped through his legs, accelerating his movement. For a brief, whimsical second, his mind flashed back to the tree-climbing training. He had never considered that he would be using those hard-earned skills to kill someone, especially so soon. It was all about jutsu and dreams, or at least it had been. His newfound knowledge, that he had been so eager to learn, now left a bitter taste in his mouth. This is what it means to be a strong shinobi and to protect someone. Haku was almost smiling. Grab hold of your dream. A battle cry was sounding from Naruto's throat, though he wasn't aware of it. Sasuke had a dream, too. The vision of Sasuke's still, cold body, filled with Saban, was painfully clear in Naruto's mind. He could remember all too well the humiliation, the shock, and then the desperation and grief that had come before the rage. That man, I didn't want to die until I killed my brother. Dark eyes, fading and glossy as the light left from them. Naruto's hand tightened on the kunai. You're okay with that? He was closing quickly now. The distance between the two ninja was decreasing rapidly. Naruto's vision narrowed. The beat of his heart seemed impossibly loud in his ears, and his footsteps seemed to reverberate throughout the bridge. He was screaming now, though he didn't know it. Are you really okay with that? Haku really did smile, watching as Naruto closed the gap between them. Those blue eyes were bright with anger and determination. Naruto had found his resolution to kill. Thank you? You will become strong. Haku's eyes slid shut as a sense of peace filled him. I don't understand, I'll never understand it. The kunai whistled as it cut through the air seeking soft, frail human flesh. A sense of deep foreboding washed over Haku, and his eyes snapped open in alarm. But it was too late, even for Haku's superb reflexes. Cold, dark steel pierced deeply into Haku's side. Haku drew a burbling breath, and blood welled up in his mouth. There was no strength left to speak, or worry, or even think. Soon there was no strength left to draw breath, and then there was nothing at all. Naruto gazed in numb horror at the blood. There was so much of it. His hands were coated with it, as was his kunai, still lodged in Haku's body. He felt warm drops of blood dripping macabre trails across his face. No thoughts went through his mind as he watched his enemy struggle for breath as blood welled from his wound, from his mouth, from his nose. No. What have I done? The mist was clearing. Sakura and Tazuna could only watch and wonder at the two shadows before them. One moved, and then Sakura could barely track it. A strange noise, like the chirping of countless little birds, registered with her senses. There was a flash, a wet sound, and then she saw blood fly. The mist was clearing, and Kakashi-sensei had punched his hand straight through Zabuza's chest. The chirping noise died away, and the summoned dogs that had sealed Zabuza's movement exploded in small clouds of smoke, their jobs completed. Sakura's stomach twisted at the sight of the dead enemy Jounin, but there was also relief that their most dangerous opponent was dead. Her relief was short-lived, however, as Naruto came into view. Quickly, tugging the bridge building along with her, she began to make her way over to her blonde teammate. Naruto! Sakura called. Naruto didn't respond, didn't even so much as twitch at the sound of her voice, which prompted a sliver of worry in Sakura's mind. Naruto! She cried again, whereas Sakura trailed off, as she and Tazuna began to truly make out the details of Naruto's appearance. Blood was dripping from the short ninja's hands. It was on his face as well, and there were dark stains on his clothing. Naruto's carriage made it unlikely that the blood was his. The still body of Zabuza's accomplice served as a silent affirmation of that conclusion. Both the bridge builder and the kunoichi were shocked at the sight, though Sakura was far more surprised than Tazuna. Tazuna was shocked that the little loudmouth blonde had killed someone, especially a ninja as skilled as Haku seemingly was, but he had already grown to respect Naruto as a person and as a ninja. Sakura, however, still harbored many of the prejudices and misconceptions that she had developed towards Naruto over the years. In Konoha, labels like genius and deadlast carried a great deal of weight. It shouldn't have mattered much, especially among the older and more experienced shinobi, but it did. To Sakura, rookie genin, recent graduate of the academy, an admirer of Uchiha Sasuke, it carried even more weight. She had never questioned Sasuke's superiority or Naruto's inferiority. She had never considered that Naruto would ever become a decent ninja, or that he could really accomplish his dream. However, the mission to Wave Country was disabusing her of many preconceived notions that she had had about the world. She had discovered that being a ninja could be terrifying and dangerous beyond belief. The genin of Team 7 had all been surprised to learn that the incredibly tardy, perverted, and irreverent Kakashi-sensei was a ninja of almost legendary stature. Sakura had also learned that Sasuke-kun's level of skill and accomplishment meant very little in the wider world, and Naruto wasn't anything like she had pegged him to be. It was Naruto, not Sasuke, who had remembered Kakashi-sensei's lesson on teamwork and devised a plan to free their teacher from Zabuza's Sura no Jutsu. He had surprised her again with his determination during training, and though he had started slowly, Naruto had ended up completing the training at the same time as Sasuke-kun. Now he had surprised her once again. Sasuke-kun had been the first to engage the fake hunter Nin, but it was apparently Naruto who had finished the job. How Naruto, the dead last of the academy, could have finished off the highly skilled masked ninja, Sakura did not know. Nor was she in the mindset to probe too deeply, worried as she was over Sasuke-kun. Naruto! She called again, moving closer and tugging Tazuna along with her. Naruto twitched visibly at her call, which she considered an improvement over his previous unresponsiveness. Encouraged, she went on, "Where's Sasuke-kun?" Naruto flinched, looking away. After a moment, he turned his head towards Sasuke's body. Sakura, now extremely worried, began to jog in the indicated direction. She passed Naruto without a second glance. Naruto's hands had curled into tight, white-knuckled fists by the time he heard Sakura begin weeping behind him. Even so, he walked towards the now visible Kakashi-sensei, who was standing over the prone body of Zabuza. The Sharingan was once again covered, and Kakashi's single eye gazed emotionlessly down at his fallen foe. As Naruto approached, he lifted his head and gave his student a glance. The glance quickly widened into a surprised stare as he took in Naruto's bloody, ragged appearance and empty expression. Quickly, he looked for his other students and soon saw the hunched form of Sakura, bent over the still body of Sasuke. Tazuna was standing behind her, sad but unharmed. For an instant, Kakashi's single visible eye seemed to droop in sorrow. The instant was soon over, and the silver-haired jounin was all business again. "Haku?" His tone was emotionless, but brisk. Naruto's shoulders shook slightly, but otherwise his expression remained hollow. "Dead," he replied. Kakashi sighed, relieved that the two main threats to Tazuna had been neutralized. But he was still worried. Is this the end of Team 7, and Sasuke? Kakashi was pretty certain of the answer, but he needed confirmation. Naruto opened his mouth to reply, but he was cut off before he could begin. Raucous laughter echoed across the bridge. Student and teacher turned in unison, only to see a dense crowd of mercenaries arrayed at the unfinished end of the bridge. A boat was anchored off to the right, answering the question of how they had gotten there. Kakashi mentally cursed. This is bad. They must have come in after Naruto's seal began to slip, he reasoned. The feeling of the Kyuubi's chakra had distracted him too much from his surroundings, and now Team 7 would pay the price for that slip. There were too many mercenaries for him to deal with, wounded and low on chakra as he was. Gato, the source of the laugh, stood at the forefront of the mercenaries, the very picture of confidence. Of course, Kakashi thought wryly, he has scores of hired thugs, and his opposition is a genin cell with only 2 effective genin and a jounin with almost no chakra. Gato's confidence wasn't completely unwarranted, though Kakashi hoped he would be able to change that. Still, it wouldn't be easy. Kakashi had no soldier pills to temporarily boost his chakra, and Naruto and Sakura weren't at a level where they could challenge that many armed men and survive. Retreat wasn't an option either, with Tazuna to worry about and the defenseless town nearby. The squat man in the suit finished laughing. Gato sighed in mock disappointment at the corpses of his hired noob Nin. Some demon, he snorted. For all his big words, he lost that badly. Shaking his head, he turned his glance towards Kakashi. I was hoping that you shinobi would kill each other off and save me the trouble, and the money, of getting rid of you. I guess he was just a cute little demon after all. Still, good work for getting rid of Zabuza for me. Kakashi's single visible eye narrowed dangerously, but Gato continued on. Normally, I would offer to pay you off so that you wouldn't interfere, but it looks like Zabuza and his little brat did some good after all and managed to wear you out. Naruto growled angrily, taking a threatening step forward. Quickly, Kakashi grabbed his student. Stop, he cautioned, don't move carelessly. The blonde struggled briefly against his teacher's hold, unable to calmly deal with Gato's provocation. Seeing Naruto's rage, Gato chuckled again in amusement. Angry, little brat? He mocked. I see you have blood all over your hands. Were you the one that killed Zabuza's little pet ninja? Naruto, who had been in the process of calming down after Kakashi's admonishment, lunged forward again. Kakashi's grip was the only thing restraining Naruto from charging headlong into the band of merciless hired killers. Gato took Naruto's reaction as confirmation. Good work, for a short little brat like you. He chortled. I wanted to do it myself, but I guess I can live without doing the deed personally. After all, I owed him a favor for gripping my hand until it broke. Gato began to laugh again, loudly and obnoxiously. It was the laugh that sealed his fate. Kakashi looked at Naruto apprehensively, and tightened his grip on the genin. The boy had become uncharacteristically silent, and still once Gato had begun to laugh. His eyes were closed, but Kakashi could see the stark tension in his body language. Naruto was a passionate person by nature, and he grew angry easily and often. However, Kakashi had never seen his student become quiet or stay still while angry, and it gave him an ominous feeling. Was the Kyuubi's influence still present and acting to incite Naruto, or was there something about his encounter with Haku that Kakashi didn't know about? Inside Naruto, the Kyuubi's chakra was indeed still moving. However, it was mostly due to the rage Naruto was feeling, rather than any designs on the Kyuubi's part. Naruto was angry. He was extremely angry. Listening to Gato talk, hearing him demean Zabuza, Haku, and Team 7 like they were trash, was almost too much for Naruto to accept. But the pleased way he spoke of Haku's death, and the way he laughed about it afterwards, that was what truly broke Naruto's already fragile self-control. Gato was laughing at Haku's death, a death that Naruto was directly responsible for. He was dismissing Haku's worth, his existence as a person, and Naruto couldn't bear that. Haku had been a good person, and more importantly, he had been just like Naruto. Haku had known the same pain, the same loneliness, and the same desire to be needed and acknowledged. Yet here was Gato, not even a ninja, a person who could never understand the pain Naruto and Haku had known, laughing. Naruto recognized the laughter. It had been branded into his soul. It was a laugh that mocked Haku and everything he had stood for. It mocked his dreams and ideals, and it degraded his worth. Naruto recognized it, since he had been laughed at and mocked in the same way by countless people throughout his whole life. They had dismissed him, hated him, and stepped all over his dreams and ambitions. Now, someone was doing the same thing to Haku, who was dead and could never come back. Deep within Naruto, something felt his rage. Massive crimson eyes snapped open, and a cruel smirk tugged at inhuman lips, revealing monstrous canines. Red eyes began to glow faintly with malevolent power. Naruto opened his eyes. Had Kakashi been able to see Naruto's expression, or the way that his normally round pupils had become malevolent vertical slits, he might have been able to prevent what came next. Naruto, strengthened by the demon's chakra, broke free of Kakashi's restraining hold with ease. There was a moment of absolute silence on the bridge as both Kakashi and the mercenaries went still in surprise and Gato's laughter stopped. Rapid footsteps echoed across the bridge, and Naruto's kunai whispered as it was unsheathed from his leg holster. Gato took a trembling step back, surprise and fear etched in his face. Then he saw Naruto's eyes, inhuman and colored like blood. They were the eyes of a demon. Gato shrieked, stumbling backwards. Hey! He yelled, shaking the mercenaries out of their surprise. Kill those guys. He received an enthusiastic response from the thugs. Weapons were readied, and they confidently prepared to meet the enraged charge of the lone genin. The man in front, armed with a large saw-bladed cleaver, smirked at Naruto. Idiot! He scoffed. Do you think you can beat so many on your own? He trailed off, his confident voice wavering, as Naruto's charge accelerated. The last thing he saw before Naruto's kunai sliced his throat open was the boy's red, inhuman eyes. Naruto carved through the thugs with speed and strength far surpassing his natural abilities. Rage left his mind mercifully blank of thought. His shinobi training combined with instincts far older and more primal, allowing him to carve a bloody swath through his enemies as he pursued the retreating businessman. Enhanced, instinctive reflexes enabled him to avoid the many attacks coming his way, but that could not last forever when outnumbered so greatly. A spear from behind pierced his shoulder, but the pain only fueled his anger. He turned to kill the one who had wounded him, but he was too late. Kakashi had slipped in on the wake of chaos Naruto's charge had created, and the spear wielder was already slumping to the ground, neck bent at an unnatural angle, when Naruto turned. Kakashi's Sharingan was once again revealed, and he countered the attacks of the mercenaries with an air of ease despite his exhaustion. Kakashi was well aware that he couldn't keep things up for much longer. Still, despite Naruto's reckless stupidity, he was still Kakashi's student and he had to be protected. However, a single glance at Naruto revealed that he didn't need much protection. His eyes, enlarged canines, and jagged whisker marks made for an intimidating appearance, which was only enhanced by the blood dripping from his clawed hands. Raw, unfocused killing intent poured out of the boy, creating a heavy, almost suffocating aura around him. But what was more terrifying, especially to the men around him, was the fact that the spear through his shoulder had been ejected, seemingly by itself, and the wound was healing at an incredible rate. Kakashi was extremely worried after seeing his student up close. The Kyuubi's chakra was obviously running rampant through Naruto's body and Kakashi didn't know how to stop it, nor was he in a condition to kill Naruto should he truly grow out of control. Before he could attempt to calm Naruto down, the boy tensed and launched himself forward. In moments he had torn past the rearmost mercenaries and was rapidly approaching Gato, who had reached the end of the bridge. Gato was quivering in fear at the blood-soaked Genin's rapid approach. His legs shivered, and no matter how hard he tried he could hardly seem to move them. Naruto bore in, the very image of death to Gato's terrified mind. Looming behind the blonde ninja, Gato saw a terrible vision. A massive, canine face with eyes just like the ones Naruto bore now glared down at him, and terrible jaws parted in cruel hunger. Gato lost control of his bladder. A demon, he whimpered in horror. Naruto's arm, kunai clenched tightly in his fist, came up. The smooth horizontal arc that followed was too fast for Gato to see, but when it made contact with his neck he died almost instantly afterward. Gato's head, his face still frozen in a terrified grimace, sailed over the end of the bridge and into the cold water below. His headless body quickly followed, as a result of a casual kick from Naruto. Several men sought to attack him from behind, but a single glance from Naruto stopped them in their tracks. Naruto's killing intent, enhanced exponentially by the Kyuubi's dreadful chakra, was more than enough to terrify the nearby mercenaries. A single chakra-enhanced leap took him over the group of mercenaries. Kakashi, who had retreated back to Zabuza's corpse as soon as Naruto had killed Gato, watched his student anxiously. However, the boy made no moves to attack him. Naruto stood still for a long moment. He trembled visibly, and when he began to approach closer Kakashi saw that his eyes were once again blue. Blue, but also dull. The shadows under his eyes made him look as if he had been crying or hadn't slept for days. Naruto stared down at his bloody hands with a strange, almost bewildered look in his eyes. It was as if he didn't recognize his own hands. Kakashi eyed his student, wondering what he should say in this situation, or if he should say anything at all. His heartbeat was loud in his ears. Did I die? The sound of soft, girlish weeping grew louder as each second passed. Sakura. Sasuke struggled to open his eyes. Dimly, he could see the bridge builder standing over him, and Sakura weeping on his chest. Aye, Sakura, you're heavy, Sasuke muttered hoarsely. Sakura gasped and jerked up in shock. Sasuke-kun? Her voice was small, incredulous at his revival, but he could hear the rising hope there as well. Sasuke could only blink weakly in reply. Tazuna gasped. Sakura, tears pouring afresh down her face, reached down and clutched him tightly, burying her face in his chest as she did so. Sasuke-kun! 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 She sobbed. Sasuke gasped in pain. Sakura, he hissed out between clenched teeth, that hurts. He shook his head from side to side, as if to escape her painful hold. Tazuna reached up to wipe the tears from his own eyes as he listened to Sakura's relieved sobs. You must be happy, Sakura. Sasuke struggled to sit up, his jaw clenching tightly as pain that lanced through him. You shouldn't try to move, Sakura scolded worriedly. He ignored her advice. Where's Naruto? And what happened to that masked guy? It hurt to talk, but he had to know. Naruto is safe, Sakura replied, and that masked boy died. She looked aside, her expression suddenly downcast. Died? Sasuke gasped. He quickly brought his head up to stare at Sakura. Did Naruto kill him? Sakura hesitated, but Sasuke's gaze bored intensely into her. I don't know the details, but she trailed off briefly, not able to meet Sasuke's gaze. It seems like he did. Sasuke turned to stare at Haku's still form, and then to Naruto, whose hands were stained red with blood. Naruto, you. Sakura, eager to change the topic, went on. I believed in you, Sasuke-kun. You must have dodged the attacks to avoid critical damage, right? Smiling, Sakura rose to her feet. Sasuke stared at the ground. That guy must have done it on purpose from the beginning. Sasuke didn't know what to think. Naruto had killed the ninja that he couldn't defeat. That ninja had subdued him easily, without using lethal violence. Was he really that weak? Naruto! Sakura called happily. Naruto flinched at the sound of her voice. Sakura-chan, he turned to see Sakura waving, a big smile lighting up her face, and Sasuke slowly rising to his feet. Sasuke-kun is okay. He's alive, eh? He turned fully around to face Sakura, stunned. Sasuke looked away, embarrassed, and slowly raised his left arm in response to Naruto's disbelieving stare. Naruto smiled, a deep sense of relief filling him. Tears formed at the corners of his eyes, and he laughed softly in joy. Then he turned to Haku's body, and his expression drooped. I see, so, Sasuke was alive after all. Haku hadn't killed him. But Naruto had killed Haku. A renewed sense of grief consumed him. Why, I see. Sasuke is safe, too, Kakashi murmured. I'm glad, he sighed, relieved. Oh. The thug pounded his staff into the ground, glaring at the Konoha ninja and bringing their attention back to the matter at hand. You guys are feeling too safe, he chided. A katana-wielding mercenary beside him nodded in agreement. You damn ninja killed our source of money, he growled, emboldened by the mutterings of his comrades. The mercenary's fear was ebbing away as greed and anger, and not a little humiliation at being beaten by such a small boy, overrode their recent terror. It helped that the demon that had so effortlessly sliced through their ranks no longer seemed very intimidating. Indeed, the suffocating pressure, the weight that had felt like the hand of death had fallen across the bridge, was gone. The crimson-eyed, bloody-clawed demon was gone. In its place, there was nothing but a dazed and exhausted little boy. The staff-wielder smirked cruelly. Now we'll have to attack the town and steal all of the valuables. The group cheered in agreement. Kakashi frowned in consternation. They've regrouped already. He put a voice to his thoughts. This is bad. Naruto, temporarily shaken from his stupor and all out of anger, whirled to face Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, don't you have a technique that can just beat them all at once? He asked worriedly. Not possible, Kakashi replied. I've used up too much chakra. The temporary spokesman of the mercenaries whipped his weapon forward. Let's go! He roared. The thugs began to charge en masse, yelling as they went. A steel crossbow bolt arced down and buried itself into the pavement in front of the charging thugs. It served to halt their rush, and they milled about in confusion. Kakashi and Naruto quickly turned to spot its source and gasped in surprise. Inari had fired the bolt, and behind him stood a great many of the island's inhabitants, all armed. Anyone who gets any closer to this island will die facing the force of this island. This firm declaration was met with a fierce cry from the islanders. Inari! Naruto shouted happily. The boy in question grinned in return. Heroes are supposed to come late, he said, mimicking Naruto's words to him back at the house. Tazuna was close to weeping with joy. Inari, all of you. Their numerical advantage clearly nullified, the mercenaries hesitated fearfully. Naruto, spotting their fear, grinned. Right. I'll help too. His blood-slick hands whipped up quickly to form the seal for his favorite ninjutsu. Kage-bunshin no jutsu, he cried. Smoke erupted around him, and when it cleared there were 5 copies of Naruto. Fear in Gato's henchmen was quickly growing. Kakashi recognized Naruto's intent. I guess I can use about the same amount of chakra as him, and use it as a bluff. Kakashi quickly formed the same seal Naruto had used. Kage-bunshin no jutsu. Kakashi was enshrouded in smoke. When it cleared, a line of Kage-bunshin stretched across the entire width of the bridge. Kakashi version, he called, smirking beneath his mask as terror consumed the mercenaries. Shall we begin? Seeing dozens of Kage-bunshin of the blood-splattered jounin glaring and cracking their knuckles was too much for the already terrified mercenaries to take. They routed in panic, trampling over each other in their hurry to escape back to the boat. Inari watched them flee, a sense of rising jubilation rising within him. Yeah! He cried happily. The islanders yelled victoriously as the remnants of their oppressors' thugs fled in terror. While the inhabitants of the wave celebrated, the 4 members of Team 7 were somber as they began to wind down and take stock of the situation. Naruto was perhaps the most affected emotionally, though Sasuke nursed his wounded pride and Kakashi just plain nursed his wounds. Sakura hovered near Sasuke, obviously concerned over the state of her crush's health. However, before Kakashi could order his team to return to Tazuna's house for rest and medical treatment, he needed to confirm the deaths of the missing nin duo. He started to walk slowly back towards Zabuza's body, saw Naruto standing still with his head bowed, and stopped. Naruto, he called quietly. The boy quickly brought his hands up, no doubt wiping away tears, and turned to face his teacher. When he saw that he had Naruto's attention, Kakashi continued, Go check the other body. He saw Naruto flinch as if struck. We need to confirm things here. If you're a ninja, act like it. It was cruel of him, but it would hopefully force Naruto to deal with the issue. After all, any ninja who hoped to become a Kage would have to accept the reality of death. Shinobi killed, and were often killed themselves in turn. Naruto had to learn that. Naruto shuffled over to Haku's body. Mechanically, he knelt, put his fingers over the main artery in Haku's neck, and applied pressure. He waited for several moments, not really expecting to feel anything, but something in him hoped of course he's dead. All that blood, he jerked in surprise. Was that? Quickly, he reapplied his fingers and waited, a faint flicker of hope stirring within him. Hope quickly began to fade, however, when he did not feel anything. A moment later, just as he was about to remove his hand, he felt something again. Eyes narrowed in concentration, his whole body tense, he waited. There! He felt almost as jubilant as the festive islanders. There was still life left in Haku's body, faint as it was. Kakashi-sensei! He yelled, heedless of the happy tears falling from his eyes. Come quick! Kakashi was at his side in an instant, motivated by the sheer urgency in Naruto's voice. He stared at the still features of the Nuke Nin, and at Naruto's excited expression, in vague confusion. What is it? He asked his student. Has Naruto snapped from the strain? He's alive! Naruto shouted. In an instant, Kakashi was down on his knees, testing the apparently still alive ninja's pulse. For a moment, he thought that Naruto really had snapped, and then he felt it. Haku's pulse was extremely weak, but it was still there. He looked at Haku's wound with a critical eye, and soon understood how Haku could still be alive. Kakashi shook his head in disbelief. I don't know whether to scold you or praise you. Somehow, you managed to miss all of his vital organs, and you foolishly left your kunai lodged in his body. You left behind your weapon, but it did stem the blood flow a bit, keeping him from bleeding totally to death. Kakashi sighed at the blonde's happy antics. He had gotten up and begun a silly dance halfway through Kakashi's speech. Number 1 surprising ninja, indeed, Kakashi thought wryly. If he had done it intentionally, it would be impressive. But I know he didn't pay attention to anatomy lectures in the academy, and was trying to strike a killing blow. The fact that he missed, against a docile opponent no less, is pathetic. Still, only Naruto could be so incompetent and have it pay off. He has luck in spades, that kid. Kakashi returned his gaze to Haku, and sobered slightly. If he doesn't get treatment right away, he really will die. Naruto, he said firmly, catching the attention of the dancing boy. Go see if there are any trained doctors among the islanders. Naruto looked anxiously at Kakashi. Is he going to be okay? Is he, Kakashi-sensei? Calm down, Naruto. He'll be alright, as long as he gets the proper treatment in time, I think, so hurry up, will you? Kakashi made a brisk shooing motion. Naruto, filled with a renewed sense of urgency, took off at a run. Kakashi ignored the blonde's strident shouts for a doctor, and began to examine the wound more closely. I said all of that to Naruto, but still, it looks pretty serious. I only know some very basic medical techniques, and only because I copied them. Kakashi sighed regretfully. Knowing medical techniques and having the skill and the knowledge to use them well were two different things entirely. Kakashi remembered Naruto's pained eyes when he reported Haku's death, and the unabashed tears of relief he had shed when he had found out that Haku was alive. I don't have much chakra left, but I guess I'll do what I can. The Jounin-sensei of Team 7 took a deep breath. He quickly formed a series of hand seals, all the while drudging up everything he knew about the human body and medical theory. His gloved hands took on a green/blue hue as chakra emitted from them. I hope this works. It turned out that there were several skilled doctors in the wave, 3 of which were in the crowd on the bridge at that particular time. The tiny wave country had once had a thriving hospital with quite a few skilled surgeons. Gato's successful campaign to crush the wave's economy had forced the hospital to shut down, and most of the doctors had left for other, larger countries. Some, however, had remained behind, mostly because those particular doctors had strong ties to the island. It took Naruto less than a minute to locate Tazuna among the crowd. Upon understanding the situation, the bridge builder had immediately gathered the few medically trained islanders present. Naruto sent one to look at Sasuke's injuries, and then promptly began to drag the other 2 towards Haku. Kakashi-sensei, he called exuberantly, I found them. Is he still? Naruto trailed off uncertainly. His teacher was kneeling over Haku, panting in clear exhaustion. Nonetheless, his hands glowed with chakra, and there was steam rising from Haku's wound. Amazed, Naruto and the doctor stopped. Kakashi had removed the kunai from Haku's side, yet there was no blood coming out of the wound. Kakashi-sensei, he called again, hesitantly, what are you doing? Kakashi looked up at Naruto, noting the 2 islanders by his side. Doctors, he assumed with no small amount of relief. These are the doctors? He asked Naruto. The boy nodded in confirmation. Kakashi let out a deep breath and stopped the flow of chakra to his hands. I've performed some emergency treatment, he addressed a pair of islanders, and the bleeding has been stopped, for the most part. The rest is up to you guys. He stood, wincing in pain as he did so. Naruto, go get Sakura and help her get Sasuke back to Tazuna's house. I'll escort Tazuna back after things get sorted out here. Naruto nodded quickly and began to make his way towards his teammates, but he didn't make it more than a few steps before he heard a muffled thump behind him. Turning in alarm, he saw that Kakashi-sensei had fell face down onto the pavement, and wasn't moving. Moving quickly, he was at Kakashi's side before the doctors had shaken out of their surprise. He quickly checked Kakashi-sensei's vitals, and was relieved to find a steady pulse. When the doctors finally voiced their alarm, Naruto waved them away. It's just chakra exhaustion, he explained to them, remembering when Kakashi had suffered the same illness in the aftermath of their first encounter with Zabuza, before they had made it to Tazuna's house more than a week ago. Seeing their blank looks, he tried to recall the explanation Sakura had given him. Chakra is like life force or something, he explained hesitantly, so if a ninja uses all of it up, they'll die. Kakashi-sensei used up most of his chakra, so he'll probably be unconscious for a day or 2 until enough of it comes back. Anyways, don't worry about him. You guys fix Haku up, and I'll take care of Kakashi-sensei. Reminded of their purpose, the 2 doctors quickly went back to work. Naruto formed the hand seal for Kage Bunshin, molded chakra, and was rewarded with 2 distinctive noises as the shadow clones popped in existence. He sent the 2 clones to construct a stretcher for Kakashi. After, he waved energetically to his teammates. Sakura-chan, he shouted, catching his pink-haired teammate's attention. Kakashi-sensei fainted again, and we're supposed to take Sasuke and Haku back to Tazuna's house. What do we? Sasuke tuned out the blonde idiots shouting, instead focusing on the two Kage Bunshin who were moving among the downed mercenaries, tearing cloth and testing spears and staffs. They were making a stretcher, he soon realized. Then another thought occurred to him. He was exhausted to the point that he could barely move and didn't even have enough chakra for a simple henge. Kakashi had clearly fainted from chakra exhaustion. Yet Naruto, the dead last of the academy who had failed the graduation test 3 times in a row, still had enough chakra to produce Kage Bunshin, which was a Jounin-level technique. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in frustration and anger. Was he really so weak? Had he misjudged Naruto that badly? How could he ever defeat his brother, if he couldn't even keep up with an idiot like Naruto? Sakura noticed Sasuke begin shaking, but she assumed it was from exhaustion, missing the dark glint in his eyes. Naruto's clones had already finished with the stretchers, and Naruto himself had disappeared into the crowd to collect Tazuna. Sasuke-kun, she began, we should be heading back now. You need your rest, and I'm sure the doctor would have an easier time tending to your wounds at Tazuna-san's house than out here. Sasuke considered this. He wouldn't be able to get back to Tazuna's house under his own power as he was now, but being carried back by Sakura or worse, Naruto, would be humiliating. However, he also knew that Sakura was right. Fine, he assented. Sakura's barely contained expression of relief, and barely concealed glee, almost caused him to rethink his decision. Naruto, he called instead. Several clones looked at him. Bring me a stretcher, he demanded coolly. Inwardly, his guts writhed in humiliation at asking Naruto for any help, but at least his blonde teammate wouldn't get any strange ideas while carrying him. It was an odd convoy that departed from the incomplete bridge. 3 clearly injured people were borne on makeshift stretchers by 6 identical blonde ninja. In front, another blonde, looking exactly like the other 6, marched with barely contained impatience. Behind them was a pink-haired kunoichi, who kept diverting her attention between one of the wounded and the old bridge builder beside her. Behind the odd pair was a large procession of armed islanders, who had yet to shed their good cheer. To many it would be a very strange sight. To the inhabitants of the island who did not know of the events on the bridge, it would be even more amazing. It was amazing because, for the first time in many years, the citizens of the wave were smiling and happy. For a time, the poverty, fear, and the ugliness of human nature that had gripped the country of the wave for so long had been dispersed by hope and a renewed sense of courage, all due to the actions of a single, inexperienced team of young Konoha ninja. Hatake Kakashi was no stranger to fatigue. Saying that shinobi missions above D and C rank tended to be demanding would be an understatement. So yes, Kakashi was very familiar with fatigue in all of its many varied forms. He was also very familiar with being injured. However, if he was forced to choose one type of fatigue that he hated the most, Kakashi would probably say, chakra exhaustion. It was a very irritating condition. The enemy did not even have to hurt you for it to occur, and when it did happen, you pretty much became helpless for days on end while you waited for your chakra stores to replenish. Chakra exhaustion could lay even the strongest ninja low, and by the time a shinobi reached Jounin level, they had gone through enough life and death situations to hate feeling weakness. In a relatively safe place, such as Konoha, Kakashi would not mind it so much. He could sit back in a hospital bed while nurses, preferably pretty ones, cared for his every need. He would also have all of the time in the world to read the ongoing Ika Ika series. However, dealing with chakra exhaustion during a mission was not pleasant. It was enough, in fact, to drive even a normally even-tempered Jounin up the wall as paranoia and boredom took turns assaulting his sanity. Kakashi was grateful when Naruto entered his private room and broke his reverie. The blonde tended to be noisy and energetic, as well as mildly amusing when teased. He could grate on the nerves, but for now Kakashi was thankful that Naruto was around to break the tedium. It had become a daily occurrence for Naruto to visit him separately from his teammates at least once a day. Of course, Kakashi had only been awake for 2 days, so calling it a daily occurrence was a bit premature, but it was shaping up to be that way. Kakashi knew that Naruto was coming more for his own sake than Kakashi's. Naruto was all smiles, but Kakashi was good enough at looking underneath the underneath to see that inside, Naruto was an extremely troubled individual. There were times when he would grow silent, his eyes shadowed, and he would often begin to ask a question. Naruto had yet to follow through with it, and Kakashi had felt it would be best to let Naruto come to terms with things in his own time, so he let the younger ninja be. Naruto was Kakashi's primary source of information while he was bedridden. Sasuke was still confined to bed rest, and Sakura tended to hover over him like a mother hen despite the dark-haired boy's clear irritation at her coddling. Thus, Naruto was acting in place of the rest of the team, escorting Tazuna everywhere he went and maintaining the perimeter around the house when Sakura couldn't be bothered to leave Sasuke's side. Kakashi worried sometimes, since Naruto wasn't exactly what he would call the sharpest kunai in the bunch. Still, nothing had happened yet, and Naruto had proven himself to be more capable than anyone, including Kakashi himself, had given him credit for. So, after the initial greetings were out of the way and Naruto settled down, The first thing Kakashi did was ask for a report. Naruto nodded, folding his arms and screwing his face up in concentration. Sasuke is finally able to stand up by himself, though he can't walk very far and is being a jerk about it. Naruto frowned in exaggerated disgust at his self-proclaimed rival's behavior. Sakura-chan is still hanging around Sasuke, and she's been really moody lately, he shivered, rubbing his jaw as if feeling a phantom pain. For all Kakashi knew, maybe he was. Sakura was a rather passionate girl, and despite the facade she adopted in front of most people, she had a quick temper. She also had the alarming tendency to express it physically. Kakashi thought it rather ironic that she expressed more of her true self in front of Naruto, whom she thought was annoying, than she did in front of Sasuke, whom the girl proclaimed to want to spend the rest of her life with. For Naruto it was a rather mixed blessing, since he was frequently the target of Sakura's wrath. Naruto visibly shook off whatever thoughts that had troubled him and perked up. The bridge is getting longer every day, he continued, this time with real enthusiasm. Old man Tazuna's getting a lot of help now, and it looks like the whole town is starting to pitch in. He smiled, puffing up proudly. Of course, without my Kage Bunshin, things would be going a lot slower. Anything unusual? Kakashi asked. Naruto's grin dropped from his face, quickly becoming serious. He knew what his teacher was asking. No, he said, shaking his head. I've been on the lookout, but I haven't noticed anyone suspicious. I scouted around the town, and I used henge to infiltrate the local gathering places, but there's nothing that hints at a counterattack. He stopped for a moment, looking at Kakashi for approval. The masked Jounin nodded, his single visible eye curling in what his students had come to recognize as a smile. Good job, he praised. It was a good job, too. A much better job than he had expected of Naruto, really. Once again, he had underestimated the blonde and been surprised. It also showed that the battle on the bridge had initiated some deep changes in Naruto. Expecting Naruto to show traits like caution or good sense had once been an exercise in futility. It seemed that the battle, and Naruto's extra responsibilities while his team was largely incapacitated, had started to prompt Naruto to think things through and consider things ahead of time. But while the battle seemed to be encouraging Naruto to mature, it had also left deep wounds that the boy was reluctant to confront. How is Haku? He asked casually. To his credit, Naruto no longer flinched when that name was brought up, but his eyes dimmed slightly and his lips quirked down. Still hasn't woken up, Naruto replied, his voice unusually quiet. The doctor says he lost a lot of blood and that he needs to stay under observation for a week or two. The guilt on Naruto's face would be obvious even to an untrained civilian. Apparently Naruto realized that too. For a moment later he forced himself to brighten up. It looks like he'll be fine though, so everything's okay, he said cheerfully. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, what was that cool technique you used to heal him? A medical jutsu, replied the Jounin-sensei. They require a very high level of chakra control, not to mention knowledge of the human body, so I don't think they're your kind of thing. Naruto's face screwed up in distaste and disappointment at Kakashi's explanation. Putting that aside, how are you doing, Naruto? Kakashi stared at his student with a level gaze. It was time to confront the issue. Naruto gave him a confused look, before a bright grin stretched across his face. What are you talking about, Kakashi-sensei? He asked cheerfully. As you can see, he pounded his chest with a fist, I'm perfectly fine. You're the one who needs rest. Naruto stood, and began making his way to the door. In fact, I should let you get to it. Tsunami-nichan will scold me again if I bother you for too long, he said. Naruto, Kakashi barked. Naruto stopped at the tone in his teacher's voice. The Jounin's tone gentled as he continued, you're going to have to talk about it eventually. It's been several days, and you've had time to reflect on things. Now you should talk about it. Otherwise, it will fester inside of you, and you'll end up consumed by all sorts of ugly emotions. Naruto was silent for a long time. Kakashi watched as the Jounin's fists clenched and unclenched in indecision, but the boy didn't deny that he knew what Kakashi was talking about. Finally, Naruto turned and sat beside the futon once more. He stared down at his hands for a long moment. Kakashi waited patiently. Sensei, he began before stopping again. Naruto took a deep breath. Do you mean he trailed off again, before continuing hurriedly, when was the first time you killed someone? Kakashi looked out through the windows, taking in the ocean view for several silent moments. I was 6, he said finally. Seeing Naruto's surprise, he smiled faintly. When I was young, it was a period full of war. Students went into the academy at much younger ages, and became genin at a younger age as well. Kakashi sighed. I was considered to be a genius, so I went in several years earlier than most. I became a genin quickly. Like you, I killed a man on my first C-rank mission, 2 months after I graduated. It was just a simple road patrol mission, but my team encountered a group of soldiers from Lightning Country. I don't know what they were doing so deep in Fire Country, but the Fire Country and Lightning Country were at war, so we attacked. I killed 2 soldiers. The first one died as we descended from the treetops. I broke his neck. The second, I killed with a kunai to the throat. Kakashi grimaced slightly under his mask. it was messy. Naruto stared at his teacher for a long time, wide-eyed. Then, in a small voice, he asked, "Does it get easier?" Kakashi sighed. "It depends," he said finally, "on what type of person you are. For some, it never gets easier. Other shinobi grow to like killing." Naruto looked horrified at this, and Kakashi smiled. It doesn't look like he'll turn out to be the second type, at least. Despite what most people in Konoha seem to think. The last thought was a sour one. For most, he continued, well, they get used to it. A ninja's trait is death, after all. Humans can grow used to a lot of things, given enough exposure. If you survive long as a ninja, you'll probably end up killing a lot of people. You'll get used to it, if only as a survival mechanism. After all, grief is a luxury you can't afford often in the field. Feeling sympathy for the enemy will get you killed, and maybe your teammates too. Very few of your enemies will hesitate to kill you. Naruto frowned, clearly unhappy. Naruto, Kakashi murmured, when you were fighting against Haku, and later with Zabuza, how did you feel while using the Kyuubi's chakra? It was not the most tactful thing to ask, especially while Naruto was still dealing with the emotional backlash of his first kills, but Kakashi needed to know. He had gotten Sakura's and Naruto's reports on the battle earlier, but there had never been a good opportunity to broach the subject of the Kyuubi's influence until now. The Kyuubi's chakra? Naruto looked aghast. Kakashi blinked in surprise. You didn't know? No, Naruto trailed off, looking even more dejected than he had before. Naruto, the copy ninja began seriously, that red chakra you used was the Kyuubi's chakra. He paused as another thought occurred to him. Naruto had seemed a bit sketchy on the details of the fights he had while using the Kyuubi's chakra. Kakashi had assumed that it was just fatigue, or emotional issues, but what if? How much do you remember of the times you used the Kyuubi's chakra? Naruto frowned. His eyes squinted briefly in the way that Kakashi had come to know as his thinking face. Not much, he admitted. I mean, I can remember some things, but I remember being really angry, so it's all kind of blurred. There was a long period of silence, before Naruto continued, but I do remember blood. He stared at his hands, clearly reliving dark memories. Kakashi cleared his throat, disrupting Naruto's thoughts. That chakra, he began slowly, it'd be best if you kept your temper in check from now on. It seems like your anger brought it out, but if you can't control yourself well while you're using it well, you might end up hurting more than your enemies. Kakashi paused, letting the implications of his statement sink in. Judging by Naruto's suddenly pale face, he had gotten the message. In any case, you should probably go back to guarding Tazuna-san. That is our job here, after all. Oh, and take Sakura with you, will you? She's been slacking off a bit too much lately. Kakashi's casual tone masked his mild irritation and disappointment with the kunoichi. I was hoping she would have learned to take being a ninja seriously after everything that happened. Naruto nodded and stood up. He made his way to the door slowly, and stopped just as he was about to leave. Kakashi-sensei, Kakashi made a questioning noise. Did I do the right thing? Naruto didn't clarify what he was talking about, but Kakashi knew anyway. They would have killed us all without hesitation, and then gone after the city when they were finished. Kakashi eyed Naruto seriously, though he knew the boy couldn't see him. Your actions were not wrong. Yes, you killed people, but if you hadn't, Sakura, Sasuke, Tazuna, and maybe even myself would have ended up dead. You helped defend your team and complete the mission. I'm proud of you. Naruto drew a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, he said, turning his head slightly and giving the jounin a sincere smile. Sakura was not a happy girl. After graduating the academy and being placed on Sasuke-kun's team, not to mention enduring Kakashi's demonic bell test, things should have been looking up for her. Being on the same team was supposed to have given her plenty of private time with the tragic Uchiha, and he should have quickly seen the merits in her, and then they would fall in love, and then. But reality was nothing like her fantasies. She had hardly spent any private time with Sasuke-kun, and moreover she was stuck with that Naruto and the perverted, chronically late Kakashi-sensei. Training was far harsher than it had been in the academy, and Kakashi-sensei could be very demanding when he deigned to pay attention to his students. Then they had begun the trivial D-ranked missions. Things had finally started looking up when they had convinced Hokage-sama to give them a C-ranked mission. She had thought it would be a perfect chance to impress Sasuke-kun with her skills. In reality, things had turned out far worse than she could ever have imagined. The ambush by the demon brothers had terrified her, and she had frozen, much like Naruto had. Sakura had been ashamed and scared in the aftermath. She was deathly afraid that Sasuke-kun, who had performed magnificently, would think less of her because of it. Still, only Naruto's failure had been singled out, so her shame was quickly forgotten. She had agreed to continue the mission, despite her private misgivings, due to Sasuke-kun's clear desire to continue on. When they had arrived in Wave Country, Sakura had once again known true terror. The weight of a jounin's killing intent was a feeling she would never forget. Even Sasuke-kun had been frozen in fear. It was then that she discovered two very important things about her teammates. One was that Kakashi-sensei was not only chronically tardy and a pervert, he was also an incredibly competent shinobi and worthy of respect. The second thing was that Naruto, the dead last, was quickly growing beyond his old title. That he had thought up such a good plan so quickly and under great stress surprised Sakura immensely. Even Kakashi-sensei had acknowledged Naruto's growth. That Naruto could have grown the most out of the genin in Team 7 had initially seemed ridiculous, but in the aftermath of the final battle with Zabuza and Gato, she was no longer sure. Naruto had proven that the dead last label no longer applied to him. He was growing stronger at an incredible pace. However, she was not the only one to notice this. Sasuke-kun had noticed it too. It was clear even through Sakura's rose-tinted view of the Uchiha that Sasuke-kun was beginning to feel threatened by Naruto's progress. Naruto's defeat of that masked boy angered and frustrated Sasuke, and he brooded over his defeat and Naruto's success with a single-mindedness that frightened Sakura. It also made Sakura even more snappish than usual towards Naruto. How dare he make Sasuke-kun feel inferior? She had tried to comfort Sasuke-kun and reassure him that of course he was stronger than Naruto, and that his defeat must have just been a fluke, but her well-intended words only served to make Sasuke angrier. She had yet to successfully banish the image of the cold look that he had directed at her as he ordered her out of his room. This is all Naruto's fault, she grumbled internally as she rechecked her equipment for the third time out of sheer boredom. If it wasn't for him, Sakura muttered. She stopped. If it wasn't for him, what? A chill thought touched her awareness. If it wasn't for him, Sasuke-kun might really have died. Was she being unfair to Naruto? Even though his actions had irritated Sasuke-kun, it was thanks to him that the masked boy had been defeated and Gato had been killed. Sakura unconsciously furrowed her brow as her mind explored the implications of this new thought. Maybe I should thank him. Her radical thoughts were cut off by a loud banging noise. Sakura whirled in alarm, her right hand instinctively going for a kunai, before stopping suddenly as she saw the source of the noise. Naruto, she growled, what do you think you're doing, barging into my room like that? Her voice had steadily risen in volume with each word that she spoke. Sakura was about to unleash her frustration onto the hapless blonde when she remembered her earlier thoughts. She forced herself to take a deep, calming breath. Naruto, seeing Sakura calm herself down, laughed sheepishly. Sorry, Sakura-chan. But I did knock, and you didn't answer. I was worried, Sakura blinked. Was I so focused on my thoughts that I didn't hear him knocking? It was an embarrassing and rather alarming thought. She was a kunoichi, after all, and shinobi that didn't pay attention to their surroundings ended up dead sooner rather than later. She sighed in resignation and accepted Naruto's apology. It's fine. Just try not to do it again, okay? Naruto nodded, eager to escape arousing his crush's wrath again. So? What do you want? Sakura asked. Ah! Naruto exclaimed. Several moments of silence passed. What was it again? A tic developed over Sakura's left eye. Naruto, she growled. Naruto, having once again tested Sakura's patience, quickly remembered the relevant details. Kakashi-sensei wanted you to go out on patrol today, he said hurriedly. Something about you slacking off too much. Naruto trailed off nervously, fearing that he had said too much. Surprisingly, Sakura didn't seem to take offense at the accusation. Instead, she nodded and collected her equipment, which for a short-range patrol meant only her kunai holster and equipment pouch. The two Konoha genin reached the bridge, with Tazuna in tow, without incident. Sakura felt touched, and just a little embarrassed, by the enthusiasm that they were greeted with as they had passed through town. Naruto, however, had seemed slightly odd. Normally, she would have expected the attention-hungry ninja to be overjoyed by so much adulation being directed towards him. Instead, he had seemed almost indifferent to it, aside from a few polite greetings to islanders he had come to know. It was yet another mystery about Naruto that she had no answer to. Sakura was coming to find that the more time she spent around Naruto, the less she really knew about him. Naruto, she realized, was exceedingly easy to categorize and write off at first glance. She was also beginning to believe that it just wasn't possible to categorize Naruto. He was constantly evolving and changing, and was probably the most unpredictable person she had ever met. The trouble with revelations was that they could change a person's worldview in rather uncomfortable ways. Sakura's realizations about Naruto left her uncertain about how to interact with her teammate. She no longer knew how to approach him, and so spent the trip to the bridge in uncertain silence. Naruto, ever perceptive to the ways people looked at him, noticed Sakura's strange behavior immediately. Her hesitation and uncertainty shone clearly to Naruto. However, as skilled as Naruto was in recognizing how people perceived him, he was no expert in deciphering people's thoughts beyond that. So when he saw Sakura's hesitant regard for him, combined with her strange silence, he immediately grasped for a reason and found one nestled within recent events. The battle on the bridge had been a pivotal moment in Naruto's life, and it had changed many things. Blood now stained his soul and left mental scars that would never completely go away. For the first time, he had gained Kakashi-sensei's respect, and that meant more to him than he could ever express in words. He had helped save Tazuna and the wave and shown Inari that heroes did exist, changing their opinions of him in the process. Was it so far-fetched that Sakura's opinion of him would change, and not for the better? Naruto had spent the last 2 nights haunted by the screams of the men he had killed, the sight, and the smell, the feel, and the taste, of blood, and the sensations he had felt as he had slaughtered human beings. Sakura had been present at that battle as well, and had seen the bloody aftermath his rage had wrought. Sakura-chan is scared of me. It was an incredibly depressing thought for Naruto. Sakura-chan was the girl he liked the most, out of all the girls in the whole world. She was his teammate, the object of his affection, and his friend, one of his precious people. And now she was afraid of him. Now that he had figured out the reason for Sakura's strange behavior, Naruto shut himself off even further. Don't think about it, he advised himself fiercely. Focus on the mission. If he thought about it, the emotional pain would distract him too much, and he refused to be a failure or a liability anymore. He would always treasure the few precious memories he had of Sakura-chan, starting with the day that he had first seen her years ago amidst the leaves. The vision of a girl with bubblegum pink hair, alone and weeping, had stirred Naruto's heart on so many levels. But it had taken him too long to work up the courage to step out of his hiding place to comfort her, and another blonde, blue-eyed child had beaten him to it. He had been too fearful, too afraid of rejection, and terrified of adult retribution. That very night Naruto had vowed, after a bout of crushing disappointment and self-loathing, that he would not hesitate again. Never again would he hide in the shadows fearing rejection or the wrath of adults. When Naruto next saw Sakura again, on her first day at the academy, he had immediately gone up to her and asked to be her friend. It was the first of many, many rejections. Later, when it had seemed like all of the girls Naruto knew had begun sighing after the dark-haired Uchiha heir, Naruto began to ask Sakura out on dates, dubbing her Sakura-chan. Every time, she brushed him off, disregarded him, and belittled him. After all, nobody who cared about how others viewed them would associate with that Naruto. Her behavior towards him hurt, but Naruto continued on regardless. One day, Sakura-chan would say yes to him. Even if she never did, though he couldn't allow himself to believe that, Naruto had promised. The day they had been assigned to the same team, he had used the Henj no Jutsu to impersonate Sasuke and find out what Sakura thought about him. Her blunt words had hurt him badly. Being called annoying and a hindrance by Sakura had almost made him want to weep, except that he had made a promise with himself about that as well. Besides, he was used to being put down, and Naruto had bounced back quickly enough. Now, Naruto could no longer afford to invest so much of himself in chasing Sakura-chan. This mission had shown Naruto a great deal about the realities of being a shinobi, and he knew that he needed to focus more. For all of his dreams, boasts, and hard work, he was sadly underprepared to perform a shinobi's duties. In the end, it was only with the help of the fox demon that had destroyed his life that he had survived. He knew that part of his deficiencies were not his fault. Prejudice towards the blonde Jinchuriki had extended as thoroughly throughout Konoha's ninja population as it did among the civilian population. His Chunin instructors had shown blatant contempt for him during his years at the academy. A small number of them had simply acted totally indifferent, as if he didn't exist, which wasn't much better. Only Iruka had truly sought to teach Naruto, and even he had taken a long time to warm to the boy. Mizuki had also been nice, if distant, but that had turned out to be a front for his sinister ambitions. However, despite his faulty training, Naruto knew that it was also mostly his fault. In response to his instructor's neglect, he had begun skipping class, playing pranks, and ignoring the teachers. By the time Iruka had begun to warm towards Naruto, and Naruto realized that Iruka was genuinely trying to teach him something, it had been too late. The habits he had developed in response to years of neglect and bias was too deeply ingrained, and as a result he had missed out on a great deal of essential training and information. Naruto hadn't thought it a problem until the last few days. An uncharacteristically intense bout of self-reflection, driven by his feelings of failure and incompetence due to the events on the bridge, had shown Naruto that not only was he lacking in essential skills, he was also ignorant of many facts a shinobi should know. Haku's near-successful impersonation of a hunter nin, and his own embarrassing ignorance of chakra, only served to drive that point home. Naruto had come to these conclusions reluctantly, and only with a great deal of thought. He might never have come to them had he not killed for the first time 2 days ago. But he had, and he knew that he needed to focus on his shinobi duties more than ever. He needed to train, to learn, to become stronger and wiser until he could call himself worthy of taking the name of Hokage, and more to a point, until everyone else had to acknowledge that he was worthy of becoming Hokage. But to do all of that, he needed to commit his undivided attention to that cause. Naruto was slowly coming to the uncomfortable conclusion that he needed to let go of his pursuit of Sakura-chan. Not permanently, of course, since he still held his promises above his life, but for a while. Naruto thought it was a wise decision, but then why did it hurt so much? The fact that he frightened Sakura-chan hurt, even more so than when she had called him an annoyance, or brushed off his repeated attempts to get her to go out with him, to acknowledge him. It threatened to demolish his focus on the mission, despite his resolve not to let it weaken him. He needed to, turn to Sakura-chan and confront her about the issue. Naruto wanted to reassure her that she never had anything to fear from him, that he wasn't a monster. No, Naruto banished that train of thought with a deep, calming breath. I can't keep chasing after her forever. I'm not that Naruto anymore. I have to grow up and grow stronger, until I never have to watch anyone's back ever again. Determination filled him. I want to follow my own Nindo. I won't be a tool for someone else to use, and I don't want to live a life of regret. I'll become Hokage and surpass all of the previous Hokage, and I'll show everyone that they can't brush me aside or keep me down. Kakashi listened intently to the sound of the front door opening. He relaxed quickly when he heard Tazuna's cheery greeting and Tsunami's reply. Naruto's loud voice rang out enthusiastically a moment later. Dinner's almost ready, he guessed. Apparently, nothing unusual had happened while Naruto and Sakura had escorted Tazuna and patrolled the immediate surroundings. It wasn't long before he could hear someone ascending the stairs. Sakura, he assumed, based on the tread. Kakashi-sensei? Sakura called meekly through the door, validating his guess. Come in, he replied, absently flipping Ika Paradise shut and sliding it underneath his blanket. He doubted that Sakura would appreciate the sight of his favorite book, especially since she seemed to want to talk about something serious. The pink-haired girl entered quickly and quietly, shutting the door behind her. You're looking better, Sakura commented politely. Yeah, Kakashi agreed. I'll probably start walking around again tomorrow. An awkward silence developed. At least, it was awkward to Sakura. Kakashi didn't really care one way or the other, but he could see that Sakura needed a little prompting. How is Sasuke doing? He asked casually. He's getting better. Kakashi didn't miss her cautious tone. He made a questioning noise, signaling Sakura to continue. Well, Sasuke-kun's wounds are healing just fine. I think he's upset with Naruto about something. Kakashi knew very well why Sasuke was angry with Naruto, and he was pretty sure that Sakura knew too. He suspected that she was already reaching conclusions about that matter on her own and decided not to push the issue. Ano Kakashi-sensei? Sakura's hands came to clasp together in front of her. Have you noticed Naruto acting strange lately? I mean, he's not acting like himself at all. Is there something wrong with him? So that's why she wanted to talk to me, Kakashi realized in mild surprise. He had thought it would be about Sasuke, but apparently even the normally predictable Sakura was capable of surprising behavior. Sakura worrying about Naruto seemed odd, given what he knew of the girl, but it seemed that she had matured a bit since joining Team 7. Maybe she's finally grasping the whole teamwork thing, he mused. Well, it's not surprising, Kakashi said. It's not. She gave him a puzzled look. Sakura, he sighed, look underneath the underneath. Why do you think Naruto's behavior would change suddenly? Sakura was the smartest kunoichi in her class for a reason. It was just a matter of guiding her to consider different angles. Because he almost killed that masked boy? Naruto seems kind of worried about him. When Kakashi didn't respond, she revised her theory. Is it because he killed Gato and some of those thugs? Kakashi nodded. First kills are always difficult to deal with, unless you're a murdering psychopath. Since Naruto isn't a psychopath, he's having trouble dealing with his guilt. Kakashi paused before continuing. But you learned about this in psychological training, didn't you? Yes, she agreed. It's just that I don't know, maybe I'm not used to seeing Naruto act like he is, so I wasn't sure how to approach him today. Sakura frowned, going silent, but after a moment her brow cleared. Kakashi-sensei, is there anything I can do to help him? Kakashi's brows rose in surprise, though Sakura couldn't see them. You want to help Naruto deal with this? He asked, almost disbelieving. She flushed. Don't get the wrong idea, she said quickly, it's not like I have any interest in Naruto. Sakura frowned again, struggling to convey the impulse behind her strange request. It's just that Naruto is in pain, and I can't just leave him alone. He's my teammate, right? For a long moment, Kakashi stared at her, his single visible eye wide. Then, slowly, it curved in the upside-down U shape that showed he was smiling. He nodded in approval at Sakura's words. She does understand, he thought. It pleased him greatly and filled him with a sense of pride towards the kunoichi. Sakura was finally beginning to mature and see the world beyond Sasuke. Well, for one thing, you can stop spending so much time nursing Sasuke and start doing your duties properly again, Kakashi said, much to Sakura's chagrin. She knew that she hadn't been doing all that she was supposed to, foisting off her duties to an uncomplaining Naruto, but she had just been so worried about Sasuke-kun. But she knew Kakashi-sensei was right. Sakura nodded once to show her assent. As for the rest, well, it's something that Naruto has to come to terms with on his own. I see, Sakura nodded again, but she wasn't able to hide her disappointment. Kakashi saw it, and decided to give her a bit more advice. He needs to come to terms with things on his own, he repeated. However, it probably won't hurt to say thank you to him. Part of the reason why he fought so hard was to protect you guys, so a little show of gratitude wouldn't hurt. He smiled again when he saw Sakura's determined look. Perfect, Kakashi thought. Sakura will feel better if she believes that she helped ease the burden on Naruto, and Naruto will get to hear some honest vindication of his actions by one of his peers. He was rather pleased with himself for finding such a neat solution. Sakura left quickly, though not before giving Kakashi a sincere word of thanks and a promise to bring his dinner up when it was ready. When she was gone, Kakashi reached under his blanket and pulled out Aika Aika Paradise. A blush spread across his cheeks as he began to read, and moments later his soft, lecherous giggles began to fill the room. To Sakura, dinner seemed strangely normal. For all of her concerns about Naruto's behavior, he exhibited no strange mannerisms during the meal. He laughed at Tazuna's lame old man jokes, teased Inari, and lavishly praised Tsunami's cooking. He didn't seem to be depressed or guilty at all, and the intense, focused look that she had seen earlier was gone. Sakura almost believed that Naruto had dealt with his issues until she caught sight of his hands. They were raw and pink, as if Naruto had spent minutes intensely scrubbing them. She abruptly recalled the sight of Naruto standing over Haku with blood dripping off his hands. Sakura didn't know why the thought of Naruto scrubbing his hands until they were raw, as if trying to clean of the stain of blood, made her feel sad. Naruto excused himself quickly once dinner was over. Sakura waited a few moments before following him at a discreet distance. The blonde ninja did a quick inspection of Tazuna's home, making sure all was well, before leaving the house. He performed a brief check on the surrounding grounds before darting off deeper into the dense, shadowed woods that covered most of the island. She pursued Naruto for a brief while before stopping at the edge of a small clearing. Naruto had stopped in the middle of the clearing and was drawing a kunai. Did he sense me following him? Sakura wondered in surprise. Naruto's sensing capabilities were rather abysmal. She doubted that had changed in the past few days. Still, she prepared to drop out of cover to reassure Naruto that she was not an enemy. Instead of continuing to prepare for combat or throwing the kunai towards her, Naruto instead charged the tallest tree in the clearing. His sandaled feet made an audible impact as they met wood, and Naruto continued to run up the tree, unimpeded by gravity. He's training, Sakura realized. She frowned in confusion. Hadn't Naruto already mastered the tree climbing exercise? So why was he still training? Hard work and Naruto had never mixed together, as far as Sakura knew. In the academy, Naruto had been one of the biggest slackers that Sakura was aware of. He had always been skipping class, usually to play pranks, and during lectures he was sleeping or goofing off more often than not. In training he would often boast, only to fail and move away to sulk. So it was a surprise for her to see Naruto train with so much determination, even though, as far as he knew, no one was watching him. Sakura watched Naruto continue to run up and down the tree. It was soon apparent that Naruto truly had mastered the exercise, for Sakura did not see him use the kunai once. There was no falling off or slipping, as he had several days before while trying to show off. She continued to watch him for several more minutes, uncertain of how to approach him while he was training. Had he made a mistake, she could have offered advice as a way to break the ice. But he did not make a mistake, and Sakura didn't want to interrupt him while he was training. Besides, with Naruto out, it was Sakura's duty to defend Tazuna and protect her currently helpless teammates. She turned to leave. You're running away. Sakura's inner persona was normally a loud, passionate voice within her mind. The flat, faintly accusing way her inner self delivered her statement surprised Sakura enough to freeze her in place. Didn't you ask Kakashi-sensei how you could help Naruto? Why are you going to run away, when you know how to help him? Stop making excuses and go help your teammate. I'm not running, Sakura wanted to reply. But how could she reply to herself? Some part of her thought she was being a coward, so perhaps she was only deceiving herself, and not very successfully at that. Sakura silently considered this, and the more she thought about it the more she knew. Naruto's new behavior scared her. It was out of the parameters that she knew him by, and it was human nature to fear the unknown. However, Sakura was a kunoichi now, and she couldn't allow the behaviors that had guided her through childhood restrain her now. Sakura took a deep breath and lightly jumped off the tree she had been standing on. Slowly, she began walking until she stood just inside the clearing and waited for Naruto to notice her. To his credit, he noticed her the moment she stepped out of the cover provided by the trees. Her distinct pink hair allowed him to immediately identify her, even using peripheral vision. Seeing that she was not an enemy, he finished his run to the top of the tree and continued down at a sedate pace, since walking down the tree tested his chakra control even more than running up the tree did. What's up, Sakura-chan? He queried, slightly worried. It was unusual for Sakura to seek him out alone. The strange half-pensive, half-determined look on her face didn't make Naruto feel any better either. She didn't answer his question immediately, instead gazing at him in silence. Naruto began to fidget uncomfortably under her gaze. Finally she said, I'm just taking a walk. Oh, Naruto blinked. He had thought that she would go straight to Sasuke's bedside after dinner. Are you training? Sakura asked casually, managing to sound as if she had not spent several minutes secretly observing that very thing. Naruto nodded, grinning. Yep, he replied enthusiastically. I have to work hard so that I can become Hokage one day. Sakura smiled, unable to reply to his statement. She had always made fun of his ambition to become Hokage, just like everyone else had. Seeing him working hard for it, especially in the aftermath of the battle with Zabuza, was somewhat jarring. The image she had of a blood-drenched, grim-faced Naruto didn't mix well with the image of the bright, incompetent blonde who had always sworn he would become Hokage. Still, it was a relief in a way. Naruto hadn't changed completely, at least not yet. "I know Sakura-chan?" Naruto asked hesitantly. He had grown uncomfortable with Sakura's thoughtful silence. Sakura blinked, shaken out of her thoughts. "Yes?" she asked. "Nothing," Naruto smiled sheepishly. "I was just wondering what you were thinking about." Sakura hesitated for a moment. She gathered herself visibly and gave Naruto a direct look. "I was thinking about the battle," Sakura murmured. Naruto flinched and opened his mouth, struggling to give Sakura a reply. I was remembering how surprised I was when I saw that you were the one to beat that masked boy," she interrupted him. "When you killed Gato and fought those mercenaries, I was frightened of you. The way you looked, the way you fought, it was completely unlike anything I've ever seen from you." Naruto winced and looked down, clearly pained at her words. "But in the end it was you who saved us, right? You protected us against Gato's men." Naruto looked back up at Sakura, his filled with emotions that she couldn't name. "Naruto, thank you," Sakura gave the blonde genin a soft, sincere smile. "Sakura-chan," he mumbled. His eyes were wide as he stared at her, at a loss for words. I thought you would hate me," he managed. "Idiot," Sakura replied, though there was no spite in her tone. "Why would I hate you for saving us? I'm grateful. Besides, without you Sasuke-kun probably would have died." Naruto felt a brief stab of pain. Is she only thankful because I helped out Sasuke? Naruto wondered. Still, it was best not to look a gift horse in the mouth. Sakura was thanking him. She was praising him for the role he had played in their team's latest mission. Naruto grinned brightly, and for the most part his smile was sincere. "It was no problem, Sakura-chan," he exclaimed. One hand came up to rub the back of his head in a gesture of embarrassment and pleasure at getting praised. "Hey! Since I did well, do you want to go out and get some ramen with me?" he asked eagerly. A tick developed above Sakura's right eye. "What the hell? I'm thanking him to bring his spirits back up, and the first thing he does after I finish is ask me for a date." Inner Sakura burned with righteous indignation. Still, she did owe Naruto. She stared at Naruto's squint-eyed, hopeful face for a second. "No," she decided firmly. "He's lucky that I don't smash him in the face for his insensitive stupidity." "No thank you," she grated out in a semblance of politeness. The disappointed look in his eyes almost made her change her mind, but not quite. "I have to get back to the house," she said, and promptly turned around to do just that. Naruto stared at Sakura's retreating back. He was uncertain why he had asked Sakura to go on a date with him after he had resolved earlier to ease up on his pursuit of the girl. Was it just a habit, or the hope that her words had stirred within him? "Sakura-chan," he called after her. Sakura stopped, though she didn't turn around. Why did I stop her? Naruto took a deep breath and knew. "I'll always protect you," he promised quietly. By the way her shoulders stiffened, she had heard his promise to her. Sakura made no reply other than to resume her walk back to Tazuna's home and Sasuke. Naruto gave her retreating form a melancholy smile. Then he turned away, instead facing the tallest tree in the clearing once more. Determination filled his eyes once again, and Naruto continued his training. Breakfast the next morning was a strained affair. Kakashi, who had decided that he had recovered enough to begin moving around for extended periods of time again, eyed his two students. Sakura seemed normal at first glance, but Kakashi soon noticed that she wasn't speaking to Naruto. In fact, she was doing everything she could to avoid eye contact with the boy. Naruto was subdued, which was also odd. Tazuna and Tsunami had yet to notice anything off about the blonde's behavior in the past few days, so Kakashi had assumed that Naruto had kept his cheerful manner up in front of them. The logical conclusion was that something had happened between Naruto and Sakura last night, and not something particularly good at that. Looks like my little plan didn't work out as intended, Kakashi thought ruefully. Sakura was in turmoil. Last night she had accomplished all she had set out to do, right? She had gone out to thank Naruto and cheer him up, and she had done so. But then Naruto had opened his stupid mouth and ruined everything. "I'll always protect you." Why had those words caused her heart to skip a beat? Why did she feel like blushing every time she remembered, which was all too often, that quiet promise? It was nothing out of character for Naruto, who had chased after her like a yapping lovesick puppy for several years now. There was no reason Naruto's words should affect her. She was in love with Sasuke-kun. Naruto was just a stupid loudmouth who talked big and failed in everything he did. Sure, this mission had changed her opinion of him somewhat, but not that much. It was probably the atmosphere, Sakura decided. The moon had been bright, and silver light had cascaded through the trees, illuminating the small clearing where Naruto had been training. The quiet, solemn way he had promised had been so different from the usual Naruto that it had shocked her. For a moment, she had almost believed him. Yeah, she thought, warming to the idea. It was just the atmosphere affecting me, not Naruto. Like Sakura, Naruto was also wrestling with inner turmoil about his encounter with his teammate last night. Despite his repeated attempts, he still couldn't banish the image of Sakura wordlessly walking away from him after he had made one of the most important promises of his life to her. She had not even turned around to spare him a glance. Her cold silence spoke volumes about her feelings towards him. Naruto still didn't want to believe that she disliked him that much, but the evidence kept piling up. It had grown to the point where it was too big for him to ignore. Sakura would never see him for what he truly was. She would never acknowledge his feelings for her. The shadow of Sasuke was too big for Naruto to overcome, as a ninja and as a person. He almost despaired at ever stepping out of Sasuke's shadow. But I promised, Naruto remembered. I'm not like Sasuke, to brood over stupid things all the time. I promised Sakura-chan that I'd protect her, and I will, even if she hates me. I will surpass Sasuke, and eventually I'll be better than all of the previous Hokage. Naruto took a deep breath, feeling oddly calm after reaffirming his ambitions, even if only to himself. That's right. I've got to work hard. He smiled, for the first time that morning. Now that Kakashi-sensei is up, I'll have more time for training, he thought, pleased. Another thought occurred to him. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto spoke, attracting the attention of his Jounin-sensei. Kakashi cocked an eye towards his most rambunctious student in curiosity. Will you teach me something new? Naruto asked eagerly. Something new? Yeah. I finished with the tree climbing exercise already, and I need to get stronger, so teach me something new. Naruto was practically bouncing in anticipation, while Kakashi stalled. He did finish the exercise, the more reasonable part of him pointed out. Plus, unlike Sakura, he has more than enough stamina. It's not like he needs to work on his reserves. He frowned. But if I Naruto and not Sasuke maybe later, he said. What? Why? Kakashi blinked several times, fighting the urge to reach up and cover his ringing ears. Well, I am injured, Kakashi pointed out. No more than when you showed us the tree climbing exercise, Naruto retorted. Kakashi winced slightly. He's got me there. Surprisingly, it was Sakura who spoke up. Kakashi-sensei, I'd like to learn something new as well, she said. Sasuke-kun started to pay a lot more attention to Naruto when he started to become stronger. So if I get stronger, Sasuke-kun will pay more attention to me, she reasoned. Shinaro. Inner Sakura agreed, nearly on fire with passion and determination at the thought of gaining Sasuke-kun's respect. Outnumbered now, Kakashi did the only thing he could do. He folded. Alright, he agreed with a sigh. Ika paradise, he thought longingly. I was about to find out what happened to Junko when she met those busted twin sisters too. Outwardly, his face gave no indication of the thoughts that traveled through his mind. Instead, he said to his students, let's go outside. There was still a while yet before Tazuna had to leave to go and oversee the construction of the bridge. Kakashi slowly led his students outside, using a crutch as support while he walked. He didn't have to go far. He stopped on the deck that overlooked the water, on the seaward face of the house. The two genin stopped behind him, puzzled. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto began. Why did you stop here? For training, Kakashi replied, smiling. Nonplussed, his students looked at each other. Quickly, they looked away when they recognized what they were doing. Kakashi sighed at their stubbornness. Kids these days. After a moment, Sakura gave in to curiosity. What kind of training can we do here? Water walking, Kakashi said cheerfully. They gaped. Internally, Kakashi chuckled in amusement. It was so much fun to mess around with his students' naive little minds. One of the few perks of the job, in fact. After a moment, Naruto's eyes narrowed into suspicious slits. Can you really do that? He asked dubiously. Of course, Naruto's teacher answered. Here, I'll show you. A faint blue glow enshrouded the bottom of Kakashi's feet. He stepped off the edge of the wooden deck. Naruto and Sakura watched in amazement as his foot connected firmly with the surface of the water and stayed there. His other foot came down to join the first, and Kakashi began to walk slowly away from the deck. He moved several paces before stopping and turning to his students. See, that's awesome. Naruto exploded. How do you do it, Kakashi-sensei? Well, it's basically the same as the tree climbing exercise, only this will teach you how to mold a constant amount of chakra. To do this, you need to expel chakra from your feet into the water and constantly release it in order to keep yourself balanced. Sakura was nodding along in comprehension. Naruto's face was screwed up in fierce concentration as he struggled to understand Kakashi's explanation. Well, just try it, Kakashi said. Right, replied the determined Naruto. First, accumulate chakra in your feet, Kakashi commanded. Quickly, his students obeyed, forming the ram seal often used to assist in concentrating chakra. Blue chakra enshrouded the bottom of their sandals. Now step onto the water, and remember that you have to release a constant amount of chakra to remain balanced. Right, Naruto thought determinedly. He stepped off the deck. Let's do this, Sakura thought confidently. After all, wasn't she the best at chakra control among the genin of Team 7? She stepped off the deck. Kakashi couldn't help the snort of laughter that escaped him as two splashes occurred simultaneously. Naruto and Sakura surfaced quickly, and clambered onto the deck even more quickly. It's cold, Sakura said, rubbing her arms and shivering. Naruto could only nod in agreement. However, Naruto was not one to be discouraged by a little cold water. I'll do this no matter what. His hands quickly whipped up into the ram seal to focus his chakra again. With a determined cry, he quickly charged back onto the water, only to sink again. It was a cycle that soon repeated itself many times. Kakashi watched in amusement as Naruto continued to plunge feet first into the cold waters that surrounded wave country. Sakura, he noticed, was being far more cautious. Apparently, that first plunge had been more than enough for her. She was now sitting on the edge of the deck, her feet dangling lightly on top of the water, as she concentrated her chakra into her feet. Periodically, she pushed her feet down into the water experimentally, testing the chakra flow. It's a reasonable approach, but she'll have trouble when she tries to focus her full weight on the water, Kakashi observed. Kakashi walked back to the deck, steering clear of Naruto as he did so. He continued to oversee the two as they trained, and after 20 minutes of repeatedly plunging himself into water, Naruto showed his first sign of progress. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this, Naruto grunted. He was submerged up to mid-shin in water, but he had halted his descent. He's grasped the trick of this chakra control exercise pretty quickly, Kakashi thought approvingly. It was an impressive feat, considering Naruto's lack of innate talent and poor grasp of the basics, not to mention his horrendous chakra control. Naruto's concentration wavered and he sank again, but when he surfaced his expression spoke of renewed determination. From there, his progress grew by leaps and bounds. Once Naruto had understood how to do it, it took him only another 10 minutes until he was walking across the water without a hint of instability. Sakura had also made quick progress. Like Kakashi had predicted, she had fallen in once more when she had attempted to stand after getting her feet firmly balanced above the water. But she had adjusted quickly, and finished 5 minutes ahead of Naruto. Seeing his two students walking and, in Naruto's case, jumping, on water brought a smile to Kakashi's face. Swaymen Hoku no Waza was an advanced genin skill after all, and yet 2 of his rookie genin had mastered the skill in less than an hour. The peaceful, happy moment did not last. Kakashi heard the pounding of feet and the sound of loud voices. He tensed, and Naruto and Sakura stopped their training at the sounds. Tazuna soon barreled out of the house. What is it? Kakashi asked the bridge builder. His voice casual, but his eyes were cold and hard, a jounin on alert. That masked boy, said Tazuna. He's woken up. A splash from behind Kakashi told him that Naruto had just fallen into the water. Haku stared at the plain, dark wooden ceiling above for a long moment before looking at the woman by the bedside. Where am I? Here's your water, the dark-haired, plain-faced woman said kindly. What happened? The last thing Haku remembered was Naruto-kun's bright blue eyes, filled with a resolve to kill, and then nothing. Where is Zabuza-san? Anxious, Haku struggled to sit up, ignoring the sharp, throbbing pain this brought. You shouldn't sit up, the woman protested. Haku continued to struggle upright. The woman sighed in resignation when it became clear that her patient would not listen to her advice. She moved quickly to assist Haku into a sitting position. Haku sat, panting for several moments until the pain receded into a throbbing ache. Here, Haku's nurse said again, offering a glass of water. Thank you, Haku said politely, wincing slightly. It hurt to speak. Still, politeness counted for more than discomfort, and there was still no clue as to what had happened. Haku drank greedily. The nurse accepted the empty glass back with a smile. You poor dear, she said kindly. You lost a lot of blood, so it's not surprising that you're thirsty. I'll go get some more water for you. She paused, frowning at Haku for a moment. That gown is rather indecent, she murmured. I'll get you some new clothes as well. Haku blinked in surprise, glanced down, and froze. No wonder it felt drafty, Haku thought dizzily clearly. The blood loss remained an issue. The clothing was clearly made for a much bigger person in mind, for it draped loosely over Haku's shoulders and fell open at the chest. Then, slowly, alarm began to set in Haku's mind. My bindings are gone. Haku reached up. My choker is gone. Haku shivered, and this time it wasn't from the cold. The full, perky curves of her breasts were almost totally exposed by the too big yukata. Her choker was no longer there to hide the fact that she didn't have a telltale bump on her throat that would have been the sign of a man. Habits ingrained by a solitary existence in the unforgiving back alleys of the hidden village of the mist told her to run, to hide, to do something other than sit there while that woman was out of sight. She knew Haku was female after all, and in Haku's experience that meant nothing good. Little homeless boys in Kirigakure no Sato were either ignored or treated cruelly. Their frequently short lives were incredibly harsh and painful, but they were mostly left alone by predators. That wasn't a good thing. But attention in Kirigakure was almost always worse. Little homeless girls in Kirigakure were lucky if they were captured and sold to slavers to be brought up to become a working girl in the water country's many brothels. If they were unlucky, they were raped and killed in a dark alley, where no one would care even if they heard the screams. She had learned this the hard way, and that incident marked the second time Haku had used her bloodline limit to kill. Luckily no one had seen the act taking place, nor had anyone cared enough to investigate the screams, otherwise she would have been killed on the spot by shinobi for possessing a bloodline limit. The village was nicknamed the Bloody Mist for a reason, so Haku had disguised herself as a boy, and surprisingly it had worked. Luckily, there was a rather great stigma against homosexuality in the water country, at least at that time, so feminine little boys were generally not in danger of being targeted by slavers or sexual predators. The mist had no tolerance for those who went against society. Then Zabuza-san had appeared during that snowy day on another bridge, and had taken her in and taught her to be a shinobi. He hadn't cared what gender Haku was, only that she served as an effective tool. Haku had never completely forgotten those hard-learned habits. However, at the present she could barely move, much less try to escape or obtain a disguise. Moreover, she was extremely worried about Zabuza-san. There was a flurry of commotion outside the room, and Haku heard the nurse's voice yell something. Haku tensed in alarm, which only brought a stab of agony as her injured muscles protested. In any case, there was little enough she could do in this situation. The door slammed open. There was a skidding noise as sandaled feet scrambled for traction. Silence fell upon the small room as Haku and the intruder stared at one another. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed Konoha shinobi gaped like a fish. It took a moment for Haku to realize that the boy was staring at her cleavage. Embarrassed, Haku reached up and tugged the yukata closed. Other emotions tumbled through Haku's mind in quick succession. She was happy that the blonde was still alive, and apparently doing quite well at that. But what was this icy feeling that was slowly clawing its way up from her gut? If Naruto-kun was still alive, then didn't that mean? Zabuza-san, you're a girl! Uzumaki Naruto yelled, clearly flabbergasted at this revelation. Haku could not help but wince as the young genin loudly proclaimed her true gender to anyone within hearing range which, given the volume of Naruto's voice, was significant. Yes, Haku confirmed. But in the forest, you said Naruto trailed off. There were few things that could prompt Konoha's most infamous prankster to be at a loss for words, but apparently this new revelation was one of them. I lied, the injured girl admitted. It was nothing personal, just a habit. If he asked why she had such a habit, what was she to do? Haku did not think that she was up to explaining the reasons behind her misdirection quite yet. Naruto banished her worries with a laugh. I'm so relieved, Naruto sighed after he had finished laughing. Haku cocked her head in puzzlement. When I first saw you, I thought you were prettier than Sakura-chan, the boy explained, rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment. Then you told me you were a boy, he shivered dramatically. But now I know you really are a girl, so it's not weird or anything anymore. Naruto crossed his arms and nodded his head authoritatively. Despite the trauma that had occurred in the past few days, Haku couldn't help but laugh softly at Naruto's words. Somehow, Naruto had managed to briefly banish the melancholy that had built up within Haku with just a few irrelevant words. It took a moment for her to realize that Naruto was laughing with her. She paused in consideration. Did he do it on purpose? Seeing the humor leave Haku's face, Naruto stopped laughing and moved to sit at her bedside. I'm sorry, Naruto murmured. His eyes were shadowed. Memories of the battle abruptly came to the forefront of her mind. The remains of Haku's good cheer evaporated. It's all right, she replied quietly. It was what I wanted. The Nukenin paused and looked down at her hands. They had been cleaned while she was unconscious, even her nail polish, and they bore no signs of the recent battle. Looking at her delicate hands, it would be nearly impossible to guess that those long, slender fingers had choked the life out of men. Nearly impossible, until they turned her hands over and saw the calluses that developed while learning and practicing a shinobi's trade. Why did I survive? She asked after a moment. Naruto grinned weakly. I ended up missing anything too serious, and Kakashi-sensei and the doctors here were able to save your life, he answered her. His grin faded when she didn't reply. Naruto cursed himself internally. Damn it! I just had to open my big mouth and make her depressed again. Sakura-chan is right. I am an idiot. And Zabuza-san? What happened to Zabuza-san? It took Naruto a moment to realize that she had asked the question, so quiet was her voice. Naruto's hands gripped his orange pants tightly in a white-knuckled grip. He knew that the answer would break Haku. But he couldn't lie to her either. Defeated, Naruto answered her question. Kakashi-sensei killed him, he said dully. Gato came to double-cross you guys and killed Tazuna. He brought a bunch of mercenaries, but I killed Gato and the mercenaries ran when the islanders came to help us. Naruto no longer flinched when he thought about being responsible for Gato's death. That man had been a true monster in a way that was completely different from the Kyuubi. Besides, Gato was responsible for the whole mess Team 7 had become embroiled in. Without him, the people of the wave would not have had to suffer so much, and Zabuza and Haku wouldn't have tried to kill Tazuna. Zabuza wouldn't have met a swift end at the hands of Kakashi-sensei. Haku wouldn't have become a broken shell of a person. He no longer flinched, but sometimes, in the depths of the night, he would remember the terror in the man's eyes, the sound of his screams, just before his head was gruesomely separated from his body. Naruto remembered that moment very well. I see. Haku showed little physical reaction to the news, but Naruto thought he could see her eyes grow bleaker. Haku felt numb. She couldn't deal with the reality conveyed by Naruto's words. Zabuza-san dead? That could not be true. It was impossible, a bad dream. Surely, Naruto-kun was joking around, or was lying, or something other than telling the truth. But Naruto was not laughing. Nor was he smiling. If anything, his face was twisted into a pained grimace. I'm sorry, he said again, and Haku could see the sincerity and the honest regret in his eyes. Zabuza-san. It hit her like a punch to the gut. Zabuza-san is dead. Her mentor, her savior, her entire reason for existence, was dead. She had failed him on a scale that she had not believed possible. She had sworn to him that she would be his weapon, a powerful tool that would allow him to accomplish his dreams. Instead, she had been defeated. Because she was too weak, Zabuza-san had been killed. Why did it turn out like this? What cruel twist of fate had allowed her to live and Zabuza-san to die? Was it because she had been too soft on Naruto-kun and that dark-haired boy? Perhaps it was because she had coaxed Naruto-kun into ending her existence, or at least trying to. It's their fault, Haku grimly decided. If we hadn't met them, Zabuza-san might still be alive. If I had killed Naruto-kun when I had the chance abruptly, Haku cut off that train of thought. She shivered, and not because of a draft either. Her thoughts had taken a very dangerous turn, and she was suddenly acutely aware of Naruto-kun, sitting silently on her right. Haku turned her head slightly to regard the blonde ninja. He was regarding her with that same solemn, regretful expression that he had delivered the news of Zabuza-san's death to her with. She felt almost ill for having such treacherous thoughts. Even if the boy had been a part of Zabuza-san's death, she knew that he held no malice. Nor had he been entirely to blame for taking her out of the action. She was the one who had convinced him that his friend was dead, and she was the one who had later persuaded him to kill her. It isn't Naruto-kun's fault, she told herself firmly. But there was something within Haku that didn't want to believe that. It wanted someone to blame, and Naruto was nearby and convenient. Naruto-kun, she suddenly spoke. The genin started in surprise, having grown used to the silence. Will you give me some time alone? He blinked in surprise. Sure, he agreed. I'll come back later, okay? Naruto rose from his seat and headed towards the door. He stopped in the doorway. Haku, he began, turning back towards her. She looked up. Naruto's smile was small but earnest. I'm glad you're alive. Naruto left, closing the door quietly as he went. Behind him, a raven-haired girl stared at the door in wide-eyed surprise. A few moments passed before the girl began to weep in silence. Naruto found Sakura waiting for him outside the doctor's home. She looked up as he emerged. How is he? She asked. She's fine, Naruto answered. A brief silence followed before Sakura asked, She? Yeah, Naruto said. Apparently Haku is a girl. Naruto began walking back towards Tazuna's house. Hey! Sakura exclaimed. She quickly jogged after him before slowing to match his pace when she caught up. How rude, she thought indignantly. It was clear that Naruto was hardly paying attention to her. Her irritation at being brushed off by Naruto of all people quickly caused her to forget her resolve to avoid him. Where's Kakashi-sensei? He asked absently. He stayed behind. He said that Tazuna-san shouldn't be left alone, so he sent me after you, Sakura answered promptly. After a moment, she remembered that she should be giving Naruto the cold shoulder for being so rude earlier. Her silent treatment, which Naruto didn't even notice, lasted all of 20 seconds before curiosity got the better of Sakura. How come the doctors never said Haku was a girl? She asked Naruto. He shrugged. They thought we already knew. The conversation died out there. Naruto and Sakura spent the rest of the walk back to Tazuna's house, each absorbed in their own thoughts. They found Kakashi and Tazuna waiting for them when they returned. Surprisingly, Sasuke was also up. The injured Uchiha was sitting at the dining table, casually sipping some hot broth Tsunami had made for him. Sakura immediately rushed to his side with a cry of Sasuke-kun, which the dark-haired boy ignored. Tazuna and the other two members of Team 7 tuned out the spectacle. Naruto, Kakashi greeted. How is Haku? She seems to be recovering, Naruto replied neutrally. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the revelation that Haku was female. Internally, he chuckled. Sasuke won't be happy to learn that he was beaten by a girl, he thought irreverently. Naruto ignored the suddenly mischievous twinkle that had developed in Kakashi's eye. I don't think she took the news about that no-brow very well though. Naruto bit his lip, suddenly apprehensive. What would Haku do, now that Zabuza was dead? Kakashi hummed thoughtfully. Well, it can't be helped, he said after a moment. How she deals with it is her choice, isn't it? As long as she doesn't come after us for revenge, everything is fine. Naruto frowned, but nodded reluctantly. He didn't want Haku to suffer any more than she already had, but he also didn't see how he could help her deal with her grief. Naruto shook his head, banishing thoughts of Haku's plight and his own role in it. No time to think about it now, he told himself. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, he called to his teacher. What should I do today? You're staying here today, Kakashi told his student. Seeing Naruto's mouth open to complain, Kakashi cut him off before he could protest. Naruto, you've been working constantly for the past few days. Now that I'm up and Sasuke can walk under his own power again, you can take a break. Sakura and I will accompany Tazuna-san today. Naruto's look remained petulant as he folded his arms. But Kakashi-sensei, he whined. Kakashi sighed. Look, think about it like this, he said. It's important for shinobi to work hard and persevere, but it is also important for a shinobi to know when to relax. burnout happens to ninja. That's another reason why we operate in teams, so that a shinobi doesn't have to do everything by himself. Kakashi gave him a pointed look, and Naruto once again found himself reluctantly agreeing with his teacher. Teamwork, Naruto realized. It was Kakashi's most important lesson to his students. Naruto felt ashamed that he had nearly forgotten that in his desire to grow stronger. The bell test had been a humbling lesson, and one that he should not forget. After all, no matter how strong he became, as a Konoha shinobi, teamwork would always be critical. When he became Hokage, it would be even more critical. A Hokage who forgot the values of teamwork would only end up getting his subordinates killed. Naruto remembered Team 7's first encounter with Zabuza. Hadn't Kakashi, despite his superior skill, been outmaneuvered by Zabuza? Yet, for all of Zabuza's strength, he himself had been outmaneuvered by 2 rookie genin. Naruto's cunning plan had required Sasuke's assistance to work. Their teamwork had forced the eyebrowless Jounin to release Kakashi-sensei from the water prison. Right, he decided. I won't forget again. Right. Naruto agreed with his sensei's words, smiling brightly. Kakashi smiled back. Sakura, Kakashi called casually. Let's go. Clearly, Sakura was not happy about being dragged away from Sasuke. The boy in question, however, looked relieved enough that it showed through his stoic mask. Not Kakashi mimicked. You're still on duty. Let's go. Reluctantly, Sakura was parted from Sasuke. Tazuna and his 2 accompanying ninja left for the bridge. Uchiha Sasuke casually put down his spoon, finished with his early morning meal. He ignored the twinges of pain that even that slight movement produced. Sasuke frowned as he looked at Naruto. The dobe was still standing there like the idiot he was, staring in silence at the floor, as he had the entire time since Kakashi and Sakura had left. Clearly, the idiot was straining his mental capacity to the point of collapse, and he had no brain power left to multitask. Whatever had caused the normally loud blonde to be so thoughtful, Sasuke didn't know. However, he could guess, and Naruto had been like that since he had returned from visiting Haku. Thoughts of Haku changed Sasuke's mild frown into a dark scowl. Thinking of the masked shinobi that had defeated him always brought a bad taste to his mouth, though that might have just been acid reflux from Tsunami's cooking. Sasuke rather doubted it was the second reason. He could remember with bitter clarity how completely the other shinobi had outclassed him. There was even his incredibly embarrassing rescue of Naruto. What had possessed him to save that idiot in the first place? The feelings he had felt at the time had already been forgotten in a tide of bitterness and envy. He didn't remember the feeling that had risen up inside of him when it looked like he was going to see another important person die in front of him. Naruto's defeat of Haku had buried the memory that he had even considered Naruto to be an important person, a friend, a teammate, a rival, and someone who shared the pain of being an orphan. There was one good thing that had emerged from that battle, and it was the one good thing that Sasuke could recall. His Sharingan had awoken. The feeling had been incredible. Enabling his bloodline changed the way he perceived the world. In the battle with Haku, it had even allowed him to catch some of the faster ninja's movements. It had changed the tide of the battle, of that, Sasuke was sure. Had Naruto not been in the way, Sasuke had no doubts that he would have crushed Haku. The power of the Sharingan undoubtedly surpassed Haku's bloodline limit. Finally, after all these years, his Sharingan had manifested and he had taken the first truly significant step on the road to killing Itachi. Now that he had the Sharingan, he would be able to put Naruto in his place. The blonde continued to dream that he could surpass Sasuke, a genius born from the Uchiha clan. For a while, in the aftermath of the bridge battle, Sasuke had harbored his own doubts. But he no longer doubted himself. Even if the blonde did have some hidden talent or special power, the Sharingan would not let Sasuke down. Special power, Sasuke thought, his eyes narrowing. Sakura had said something about Naruto's battle with Gato's thugs, something about a special power. Naruto, Sasuke said, snapping the blonde out of his reverie. Sasuke? He asked quizzically. Naruto was surprised. Normally, he was the one to initiate dialogue with the Uchiha. Sasuke uncharacteristically hesitated. He felt stupid even asking. Naruto, have a special power? It was ridiculous. Still, Sasuke gasped, died? He quickly brought his head up to stare at Sakura. Did Naruto kill him? Sakura hesitated, but Sasuke's gaze bored intensely into her. I don't know the details, but she trailed off briefly, not able to meet Sasuke's gaze. It seems like he did. Sasuke turned to stare at Haku's still form, and then to Naruto, whose hands were stained red with blood. Sakura told me about your fight with Gato's men, Sasuke said abruptly, watching Naruto through dark, narrowed eyes. Naruto flinched, causing Sasuke's eyes to narrow further. Could he really have a special power? She said you used some sort of strange power. What was it? Naruto was deeply conflicted. He knew that Sakura had seen something on the bridge. He remembered their late-night conversation all too well, but he had no idea that she would have spoken about that to Sasuke. What did she tell him? But then, did he really want Sasuke to have an inkling about the Kyuubi's presence within him? Sakura having a piece of the puzzle was bad enough as it was. Naruto had no doubts that Sasuke would hold it against him if he found out about it. Naruto laughed, causing Sasuke to twitch in anger. Special power? Naruto mocked, amused. Me? He laughed again. Slowly, his laughter faded and he looked seriously at Sasuke, whose hands were folded tightly together in anger. I wish I had a special power, Naruto said. All I have is a curse. The first thing I'd do with it is beat you up. Naruto smirked at his rival. Sasuke sneered back. Sakura-chan probably just couldn't see well because of the mist, Naruto reasoned. Seeing Sasuke nod, Naruto relaxed slightly. His insides had wound up tightly in nervousness without him knowing it. If that's all, I'm going out to train. Sasuke watched the other genin leave. Of course Naruto doesn't have any special powers, except maybe stupidity. Sasuke felt oddly reassured. That's what happens when I listen to Sakura's babbling, he thought, disgusted with both the pink-haired Kunoichi and himself. Slowly Sasuke smiled. Things were starting to look up. He had obtained the Sharingan. No doubt Naruto's defeat of Haku was some sort of fluke, and killing a couple of non-ninja mercenaries was nothing important. It also looked like they had all but completed their first C-turn A rank mission, since the main threats had been eliminated. Now all Sasuke had to do was recover, and then he could begin work on mastering the Sharingan. Sasuke stood gingerly, ignoring his aching muscles as he did so, and deposited his bowl in the sink. On his way out of the kitchen he grabbed a peach. He slowly walked outside and began to leisurely stroll around the deck in order to exercise his legs, feeling oddly peaceful. The fruit was quite good, the sun was warm, and all was right with the world. Maybe I can get Kakashi to help me with my Sharingan, Sasuke mused, taking another bite out of the peach. He paused when he heard Naruto's voice. Curiously, he kept walking and turned the corner. Sasuke stopped staring. Naruto was training again. However, it was not like any training Sasuke had ever seen before. The dead last was, like Sasuke, taking a casual stroll out in the nice weather. Unlike Sasuke, his walking was all done on top the blue-green coastal waters of the wave country. Sasuke was completely unaware of the way his features had steadily tightened into a snarl at the sight of Naruto walking on water. He was also not aware that he had crushed the peach in his tightened fist, or that his nails were digging furrows into his palm that would soon pierce through the skin. Naruto. Suddenly, the blonde's name seemed like a curse as it rang through Sasuke's mind. Immediately after successfully diverting Sasuke's suspicions, Naruto had gone out to the deck and began training his chakra control once more. He had figured out how to successfully stand on water, but his control wasn't perfect yet. That had been made clear earlier, when he had lost control and fallen and after hearing that Haku had awakened. Naruto was determined to master the Swaymen Hoku no Waza to the point where his control didn't waver, even under duress. If he ever had to fight on water, it wouldn't do if he fell in every time he was distracted. Besides, if he stayed on the water long enough it would become good stamina training as well. Naruto felt a flash of killing intent. It wasn't nearly as potent as Zabuza's or Kakashi-sensei's had been, but it had manifested enough to attract his attention. He looked up quickly, trying to spot its source. He frowned when he saw nothing unusual. The killing intent was gone as well. Was it just my imagination? Naruto wondered. Then he noticed that he had been distracted from the exercise, but had nonetheless managed to stay standing on the water. Naruto looked down at his feet, seeing the steady ripples of water emanating outward his feet, and grinned happily. My training is already producing results, he exulted. His grin grew wider as a new thought occurred to him. If that's the case, then let's try something different. Konoha's #1 most unpredictable ninja brought his hands up to form the seal for Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A moment later, the distinctive, high-pitched sounds of Kage Bunshin forming, along with the accompanying bursts of smoke, announced the arrival of nearly 20 solid copies of Naruto. All of them stood as easily upon the water as the original did. The greenish-blue waters near Tazuna's seaside house quivered as 21 shinobi sent their chakra into the water, creating ripples that spread out and began to batter against each other. Naruto stood still, listening to the sound of water rippling, moving, lapping against the shore. Naruto took a deep breath, taking in the cool, salty morning air. He grinned at his 20 reflections and made a fist. All right. Naruto shouted, his grin turning slightly feral. Let's go wild. Shouting and the sounds of fierce fighting quickly erupted behind Tazuna's home as Naruto and his Kage Bunshin engaged in close combat with each other. When Kakashi, Sakura, and Tazuna returned home, they were met at the door by Tsunami and Inari. Tsunami smiled, greeting her father and his bodyguards warmly. Inari bounced up to Tazuna and launched into a rapid-fire explanation of his day. Sakura shook her head at the sight, thinking about how different Inari had become from when she had first met him. The sullen brat he had been had given way to a cheerful, talkative young boy. In fact, now that Sakura thought about it, he seemed to be changing into a miniature Naruto, at least personality-wise. She didn't ponder things for long though. After all, Sasuke-kun was just inside. Sasuke-kun was indeed just inside. In fact, it looked like he had hardly moved since she had left him in the morning. He was sitting quietly, apparently reading one of Tazuna's books on architecture. Per Sasuke-kun, she thought at the sight. He must have been so bored. Kakashi-sensei should have taken Naruto instead of her. Sasuke-kun shouldn't have been left alone with Naruto of all people. Shinaro. Inner Sakura punched her fist in the air, reflecting her frustration with this morning's turn of events. Kakashi-sensei came up beside Sakura, startling her out of her thoughts. Sasuke, he greeted the boy. Where's Naruto? Kakashi asked when Sasuke didn't reply. Sasuke lifted his hand to point towards the back of the house, outside. There was a dark undertone to Sasuke's voice that the silver-haired Jounin did not like. He frowned for a moment, eyeing his most talented student. Kakashi dismissed his momentary worry with the mental equivalent of a shrug. Thanks. Kakashi turned and went back through the front door. As Kakashi made his way to the back of the house, he began to hear the sounds of combat. Naruto's voice rang out from multiple throats. As Kakashi turned the corner, he saw over a dozen Naruto clones locked in what was apparently a prolonged taijutsu battle. Naruto and his clones were panting furiously for breath, and all of them sported torn clothes and bruises. He's been at this for a while, Kakashi observed. Naruto's movements were uncharacteristically sluggish, and his general condition hinted at a level of exhaustion that was rare in the blonde genin, given his naturally high stamina. The battle lasted another 2 minutes. Naruto and his remaining clones were all exhausted, but the desire for victory meant that none of them stayed on the defensive for long. Kakashi watched the final, chaotic brawl with a critical eye, noting the flaws in Naruto's technique. He needs help. Badly, was the conclusion that Kakashi came to. Naruto's taijutsu was incredibly sloppy. While that was something Kakashi had known, he had not known how terrible Naruto's form was. Watching Naruto fight what was essentially himself, without Sakura or Sasuke to draw Kakashi's attention away, showed Kakashi just how badly the blonde genin's education had been screwed up. There were only 3 left. One Naruto stood still on the water, glancing back and forth warily. Around him, 2 other Naruto clones circled slowly. They had apparently declared a temporary truce in order to get rid of the third Naruto. Sunlight beat down harshly, casting a fierce glare down upon the ocean. Blue-green water reflected sunlight, the surface becoming nearly blinding to look at in some spots. Beads of sweat rolled down Naruto's cheeks. More flowed down in forehead, dripping down into his eyes, but he dared not blink. He was hot, tired, and his muscles ached. He was also determined to finish things. Naruto kept his eyes on the Kage Bunshin in front of him, using his peripheral vision to study the reflections in the water. The glare may have been annoying and limited his visibility, but it also allowed him to see the reflection of Kage Bunshin behind him, even as distorted as the water was by ripples and other disturbances. The circling Kage Bunshin charged simultaneously from opposite directions, hoping to exploit the defending Naruto's blind spot. However, Naruto did not stand still to receive the attack. The instant he saw the Kage Bunshin to both sides of him move, he abruptly launched himself to the right and made to attack one of the charging clones. His charge was met with a swift punch. Naruto slapped the punch aside and moved inside the clone's guard, following up with a brutal hit to the hollow of the shadow clone's throat. The clone's esophagus collapsed, and he popped out of existence. Naruto turned just in time to meet the second clone's charge, but he was a step too slow. The Kage Bunshin fainted, launching a fist at Naruto's solar plexus. Quickly, Naruto stepped back, his hands moving to intercept the oncoming punch. This was exactly the reaction the shadow clone wanted. He quickly lashed out and swept Naruto's forward foot out from under him, causing the real Naruto to lose his balance and fall into the water. The clone grinned down at his distorted reflection, heady with triumph. He was still grinning when a trio of shuriken erupted from the water and pierced his body, causing the clone to explode in a cloud of white smoke. Naruto emerged from the water moments later. He laboriously used his hands to push himself above the water, wincing as he did so. For some reason, he felt a chilling sensation. It was as if he had been hit with shuriken. Naruto shrugged to himself as he staggered to his feet. Despite his clear exhaustion, Kakashi noted that the blonde genin was able to remain steady on the water. In fact, Kakashi had noticed that there had not been a single waver in control during any moment of the fight he had just witnessed. Considering that Naruto had only learned the skill that morning, his progress was nothing short of phenomenal, especially in view of the fact that Naruto was not what one would call the sharpest tack in the box. Had it been Sakura, Kakashi would have taken it for granted that she would master the skill of water walking quickly. After all, her ability to control and mold her chakra was the greatest of her generation. Kakashi had no doubt that the Uchiha would master the skill quickly as soon as he learned it. Sasuke was a genius of the infamous Uchiha clan, a prodigy who could master shinobi talents at speeds few could match. Of course, if his Sharingan was developed enough, Sasuke would not have to learn how to walk on water. He could copy it from someone else. Kakashi had already known of Naruto's enormous potential regarding his chakra reserves, but for a while it had seemed like that was all that Naruto had going for him as a ninja: stamina and bullheaded determination. The last of the Hatake family had come to know that Naruto had a tendency to defy expectations, but he had not realized how extensive this trait of Naruto's was. Over the course of this mission, Naruto had changed dramatically, to the point where, appearances aside, it was difficult to recognize that the naive boy who had left Konoha several weeks ago and the capable genin training on the water were the same person. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto greeted, acknowledging Kakashi's presence. "Yo, when did you get back?" the blonde asked while he wrung the water from his jacket. "Just now," Kakashi replied absently, his eye trained on his book, which he had quickly retrieved from his pouch before Naruto had noted his presence. Kakashi looked up from his book curiously when Naruto made no further attempts at conversation. Naruto was still trying to squeeze the water out of his jacket, and was apparently content to ignore his sensei. The jounin frowned at Naruto's back, considering whether or not he should offer his advice on the boy's taijutsu. Finally, he shrugged to himself. "I'll think of something when we get back to Konoha." He turned to go back inside. "Naruto," Kakashi said, stopping as a thought occurred to him. "Now that Haku is awake, it's your responsibility to keep a watch on her." Considering the history between Sasuke and Haku, putting Sasuke on watch duty would likely end up with one or the other dead. He doubted that Sakura would be able to stop Haku, should the Nuke Nin attempt anything. That left Naruto and himself. Naruto was the best choice, since he was the one who had incapacitated Haku in the first place. Besides, those two seemed to share an understanding of some sort, so it was probably for the best. She's still too weak to move much, so having the doctor and his family watch over her is fine for now. But starting tonight, I need you to start keeping an eye on her. "Right," Naruto said quietly. He frowned glumly as he looked out towards the blue horizon. Guilt curled in his chest as he thought about Haku. He wasn't looking forward to confronting her again, not at all. Sakura stared uneasily at the dark, smooth surface of the wooden table. She fiddled with her fingers and smoothed out imaginary creases in her dress. Occasionally, Sakura would peek shyly at Sasuke, who sat across from her in what she had come to know his classic brooding pose. Tazuna and his family were upstairs and Naruto and Kakashi were outside, doing who knows what. They were alone together, which was great in Sakura's book. Unfortunately for Sakura, Sasuke was brooding with particular intensity. That meant that all of her attempts at conversation were ruthlessly shot down. When he caught her staring at him too long, he would snap at her. Sakura's happiness at being alone with Sasuke was rapidly plummeting into despair at being ignored by Sasuke. Worst of all was that she had no idea why Sasuke was angry this time. He had not been so angry when she left in the morning, and she doubted that Inari or Tsunami could have upset him so much. That only left, of course, Sakura sighed. Naruto. It made perfect sense to Sakura. Naruto had done something incredibly stupid or offensive again, and had gotten Sasuke angry. Having drawn her conclusions, Sakura stood up abruptly. Righteous anger was already filling her as she stalked, gracefully, of course. Sasuke-kun could still see her, after all, towards the door in order to hunt down Naruto. Sakura stopped as abruptly as she had started. "Yes, Sasuke-kun?" she asked, turning towards her crush and favoring him with a sweet smile. The boy still didn't look at her, and after a few moments Sakura began to wonder if she was imagining things. Sasuke stared intensely at the wall opposite to him, and his hands clenched convulsively together in a white-knuckled grip for a brief moment. He relaxed visibly, letting out an inaudible sigh. "Do you know how to walk on water?" he asked finally. Sakura blinked. She hadn't been expecting a question like that. "Sure," she replied innocently. "Naruto begged Kakashi-sensei to teach us something new this morning, and we both learned it." Sakura trailed off. If she had thought that Sasuke's glare was bad before, it was now several times worse. The young Uchiha was almost quivering with anger and frustration. Suddenly it occurred to Sakura why Sasuke was mad. "But I'm not very good at it, and it took Naruto forever to even get the basic concept down. He plunged into the water so many times it was—" "Sakura!" Sasuke interrupted her harshly. Quickly, the pink-haired girl ceased her babbling, staring at Sasuke with wide eyes. Sasuke held her gaze for a long moment, his eyes burning into hers, and not in a good way. "Shut up." The kunoichi stared at Sasuke's back as he left the room. Her bottom lip quivered, and she bit it hard to stop its movement. The coppery taste of her own blood touched her tongue. Tears threatened to fall from suddenly watery eyes, and Sakura sniffled. She shook her head almost violently and urgently wiped her tears away. "I'm not going to cry," Sakura thought fiercely to herself. "I'm a ninja too." "A shinobi must not show any emotion, in any situation," Sakura whispered bleakly. "A ninja must put the mission first, and have a heart that does not allow tears." It was the 25th clause among many that Konoha taught its young students. It was one of the many rules that governed ninja behavior, all of which Sakura had studied and knew well. It was one of the many things she was rapidly discovering that she was a failure at. She was learning all too well that she could not, possess the heart that a shinobi was supposed to have. Sakura was bitterly beginning to realize that the knowledge she had accumulated in the academy, and the grades she was so proud of, meant very little in the field. Over the course of the mission, she had not been able to accomplish anything of note. She had wept and trembled while her teammates fought and bled. Her dream of impressing Sasuke seemed farther away than ever. The reality of chasing Sasuke had proved to be far different from her fantasies. Early on, back in the academy, she had imagined that if she was pretty enough and smart enough to catch his eye, everything would fall into place. While she had worked hard and proved to be the smartest student of their year, Sasuke had never once praised her for it. Worse was that, as hard as she tried, he had never acknowledged her as cute, or pretty, or in any way feminine. Of course, if good looks were the way to Sasuke's heart, then Ino probably would have beaten her to it, if some older, more developed girl didn't do it first. Still, during her later academy years, her rivalry with Ino and, to a lesser extent, the other girls in the class had kept her from dwelling on her total failure to make any progress with her crush. Once they had been put on the same team, Sakura had believed that she would finally be able to snag the elusive Uchiha. The thoughts of spending all of that time together, alone, Naruto didn't count, had made her shiver in glee. Of course, things did not go that well. Sakura discovered, to her chagrin, that Naruto did count. He counted more than she did, apparently. As much as Sasuke tried to ignore Naruto, the blonde idiot was always able to provoke a reaction from the normally stone-faced boy. Sasuke paid attention to Naruto. At first, Sakura had assumed that it was because Naruto just naturally irritated Sasuke, but she soon began to suspect that it was something else. Sasuke acknowledged and feared Naruto's potential, at least on some level. It was something that shocked Sakura. How could anyone in their right mind believe that Naruto, the dobe, could ever match up to Sasuke? Naruto had been Sasuke's self-proclaimed rival for years, but no one had ever suspected that Sasuke took it seriously. But ever since the bell test, Sasuke had started to take the rivalry he had with Naruto seriously, even though he tried to hide it. The mission to the wave had confirmed Sasuke's worst fears about Naruto's potential and shown Sakura sides of her two teammates that she had always been blind to before. Sasuke was afraid that Naruto would surpass him. It was a hard truth for Sakura, who had always held Sasuke up on a pedestal and viewed Naruto as a failure, to swallow. Sakura's perfect image of Sasuke was starting to crack. Somewhere, deep inside herself, she was beginning to question if Sasuke was worth the pain. It was not something she was able to consider seriously for very long. The implications were simply too great, and too painful to bear. For so long, she had invested everything in chasing after the raven-haired boy. Her hopes and dreams for the future were all bound to Uchiha Sasuke. In the end, he was the reason she had come so far as a kunoichi. Her appearance was carefully crafted around what she believed that he liked. All of her noteworthy accomplishments in the academy had been attempts to impress him. The reason she was a kunoichi had become intimately tied to Uchiha Sasuke. She was a ninja because Sasuke would be nothing but a ninja. She had forgotten her original reasons for wanting to become a kunoichi in favor of Sasuke. Everything she was today, she was for him. Not for herself, or her friends, or her family, but Uchiha Sasuke. The idea that he wasn't worth what she had done for him was simply ridiculous. It was as ridiculous as saying that she wasn't the one who would snag him in the end. It just wasn't something she ever could or would doubt, ever. Even as Sakura brought her emotions under control and went to freshen herself up in the bathroom, the tiny little seeds of doubt that had burrowed deep within her heart were beginning to blossom. A plant's roots can burrow through stone, opening and widening cracks in a previously unbroken surface, and the walls that kept Sakura's heart safe from doubt were not as strong as stone. Stars shone brightly in the sky as night deepened its hold on the small island of the wave. The bright, waxing moon continued its slow march across the night sky. Uzumaki Naruto sighed as he trudged towards his current objective, the house and clinic where Haku was presently being held. Takanaji Jushiro was one of the few doctors still living in the wave, with his wife and assistant Kanako, and he was the only one with medical facilities available to him. Those medical facilities consisted of a few rooms of his surprisingly large, if run-down, house that had been converted to serve as a clinic. It was a far cry from Konoha's large, well-appointed hospital, but it was the best the wave had. Jushiro and Kanako were warm and welcoming, and very different from any of the doctors Naruto had ever met. But then Naruto had never met a single genuinely nice doctor in his life, so even their disposition made them unique to him. The night air in the wave was crisp and cool, with the slightest tang of seawater, and in the distance the young ninja could hear the faint sound of waves crashing against the shore. Normally Naruto would have been running, or leaping from branch to branch in the trees, in order to get to his destination faster. Tonight, however, he had no inclination to hurry towards the clinic. His usual impatience was tempered with dread. Naruto had never dealt well with guilt, and he was dreading facing Haku because of it. He didn't feel it often, but when he did it clung to him persistently, and he didn't know how to get rid of it. Naruto felt guiltier than he had ever felt before in his life, and surprisingly it wasn't about his first time killing. He had gotten over that, well, not really, but he was starting to come to terms with the fact that his team would be dead otherwise, so he was beginning to accept the necessity of it. Nightmares and the constant weight of his conscience were small prices for him to pay for their safety. Naruto felt guilty because he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Haku's pain was his fault. Rationally, he knew that there had been a lot of things out of his control during that battle, but reason and guilt didn't necessarily mingle in the same circles. As soon as he began to think about it, he would begin to imagine scenarios where he had been stronger, or faster, or smarter, or if he hadn't. Naruto shook his head angrily, his hands balling into tight fists, as he tried to shake that train of thought. Allowing himself to get sucked into a cycle of what-ifs and self-recriminations was stupid, and it didn't change anything. I need to focus on the future, on how to make things better, not on what went wrong. His thoughts brimmed with renewed determination, and he began to pick up the pace towards the Takanaji residence. How are you feeling, dear? Haku forced a smile at the concerned, motherly hovering of the nurse. I'm fine, Kanako-san, the girl murmured quietly. Your stomach is all right? Yes. The soup was delicious, and my stomach is just fine. Haku smiled again as the woman beamed at the praise. It wasn't an entirely forced smile either. Tonight was the first time she had been allowed to feed herself since she had been injured, and it was nice to have some independence back. As a plus, the soup had been genuinely good. Is there anything you need? Some water or... It had been a very long time since Takanaji Kanako had needed to take care of a live, injured patient, and her professional decorum had long since evaporated. She had 2 children, both boys, and they were both grown and had left home years ago. The slim young girl on the bed seemed more like a daughter than a patient after spending several exhausting days and sleepless nights struggling to save her life and nurse her back to health. No, thank you, Haku replied politely. Well, all right. I'll just take this tray and leave you to your rest. Kanako leaned over the side of the bed slightly, picking up the tray from across Haku's lap. A pale, slim hand flashed towards the woman and back in a quick, deft movement that only another ninja could have caught sight of. Kanako began to walk out of the room with the food tray. She stopped at the doorway, hesitating. If you need anything, just ring the bell and I'll come right away, okay? Yes. Apparently satisfied, the nurse left, closing the door as she went. Haku regarded the item she had pilfered from Kanako critically. Haku had no idea why the woman had been carrying around a small kitchen knife, but she was grateful that Kanako did. The knife was rather dull and scratched, as well as slightly bent to the right, but it was serviceable for her needs. Lightly, she pricked her index finger with the point. Blood welled immediately from the puncture wound, and Haku nodded in satisfaction. It would do, Zabuza-san, the girl murmured into the still silence that had come over the room. I was a failure as your tool. Because of me, not only were your dreams never fulfilled, but you lost your life as well. Haku sighed and looked at the blood welling from her fingertip again. She smiled sadly. I should have died on that bridge. Now I have no reason to live. Blank hazel eyes slid shut, and Haku took the small knife into a 2-handed grip, pointing upwards. Trained muscles tensed. A noise shook her concentration. The door creaked open, and light flooded into the dark room. Haku's eyes snapped open. Naruto-kun. There was no time left. The blue-eyed boy was stunned by the sight that greeted him, but only for a second. He was moving even before Haku drove the knife towards the junction where the neck met the jaw with lethal force. The sound of sharpened metal slicing into living flesh is something all ninja become intimately acquainted with, sooner or later. Naruto dearly wished that he had not had so many chances to memorize it recently. Drip. Haku's eyes opened slowly. She wasn't dead. She could clearly feel the exertion in her arms as they struggled to force the knife higher. Drip. So where was sound of dripping blood coming from if not her? Drip. She looked down and saw that a calloused, tanned hand had wrapped around the blade of the knife. Red blood ran freely down the sides of his hand, falling down and staining her yukata. More continued down in wrists and forearms, soaking into his jacket. Some blood was dripping down to the floor, creating a surprisingly loud dripping noise, which was the only sound in the room aside from Naruto's harsh breathing and the thumping of her own heart in her ears. Cut it out, Naruto growled, his voice rough with rage. There was no sign of pain in his face or in his voice, despite the fact that the knife had surely cut deeply into his hand. Haku stared at him with wide eyes. Finally, she shook her head. Let go, Naruto-kun. No. His voice was flat now. Let go, she said again, this time more forcefully. Haku struggled to force the tip of the blade to her throat. Naruto's hand shook as he struggled against her. No, let go! Haku growled, her eyes wild. With all of her strength, she brought the blade closer. Release was so close. Why was he interfering? No. Naruto's face had become totally expressionless, but his eyes gleamed brightly with emotion as he stared down at her. Let go! She was screaming now, heedless of who heard her. Let me die. No, he said firmly. I'm not going to let you die. Haku seemed to collapse in on herself. Tears streaked down her face, and the strength seemed to suddenly leave her arms, leaving her with a tenuous grip on the knife. Please, she begged, let me die. No. Why? Why do you care? I'm worthless. I failed Zabuza-san. I tried to kill you and your friends. She sobbed. I even killed my own parents. I'm a monster, I deserve to die. Naruto was trembling. He bit his lip, struggling to rein himself in. The taste of blood filled his mouth. I have no dreams left. With Zabuza-san gone, I have nothing. She stared up at him with dead eyes. Please let me die. Naruto closed his eyes, breathing harshly. Naruto-kun. Please kill me. Dull, hopeless eyes stared at him, and despairing words twisted their way into Naruto's brain. Then there was blood. So much blood. Monster! Those eyes were so cold. What had he done wrong? I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm not a monster. Please, please, look at me. Get away from our child. Another playmate lost, another peer poisoned against him. No! I didn't mean it. Please come back. Don't leave me alone. You are the monster fox that killed Irika's parents, the Kyuubi no Yuko. Wordlessly, Naruto raised his free hand and brought it sharply across Haku's face. The loud smack seemed to echo through the room, and the distraught girl stared at him, stunned. You're not a monster, Naruto said forcefully. His hand came back down to rest lightly on his stomach. If you are, then what does that make me? He asked quietly. Eh? Haku blinked, still off balance. 12 years ago, the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konohagakure no Sato, Naruto intoned, his voice barely above a whisper. He gripped the fabric of his jacket tightly. The Yondaime Hokage wasn't able to kill it like most stories say. Naruto trailed off, uncertain if he really wanted to continue. His knuckles whitened as he squeezed the fabric around his stomach even tighter. Naruto bit his lip. He barely felt it when an incisor broke through the skin. Warm blood welled up from the small wound and Naruto tasted the bitter, copper taste of blood as it filled his mouth. Naruto raised his gaze, meeting Haku's eyes. For a long moment, Naruto stared at her. He saw, and felt, her confusion and her pain, her loneliness and despair, the feeling that your existence is needed by no one in this world. In the end, it had already been decided. There was no other choice that he was willing to make. Naruto sighed and smiled faintly. Instead, the young Jinchuriki murmured, he sealed the Kyuubi into a newborn baby. Naruto paused again, his smile becoming bittersweet. Distraught as she was, Haku was nonetheless an extremely sharp young woman. Realization was swift in coming. Her eyes widened. "You," she breathed. The hand that had clenched the jacket above the seal relaxed and fell limply to his side. "Me," he said matter-of-factly, his smile widening faintly at Haku's astonished look. Haku was gaping now, open-mouthed. "If you're a monster," Naruto continued slowly, deliberately, "then what am I? Ever since I was just a kid, everyone in Konoha hated me," Naruto related, his tone almost nostalgic. "I didn't know why until I graduated from the academy." "You didn't know?" The pain, the despair, the feel of Naruto's blood growing cold on her skin, was all forgotten. Haku was enraptured by his story. The kinship she had felt with the boy made more sense with every new revelation. Naruto nodded. Sandaimojikan made a law. No one was supposed to talk about it, the fact that I had the Kyuubi in me. Naruto smiled again, this time with true fondness. "He was trying to protect me," he murmured. His smile faded, but he couldn't protect me from their eyes. He couldn't stop them from ignoring me, from shunning me, from hating me no matter what I did. It was never enough, and I never understood why they were like that. Haku blinked rapidly, her eyes suspiciously wet. She remembered all too well the way she had been treated in the alleys of Kirigakure. No one had anything to spare for a dirty beggar child, not even the acknowledgement that she was alive. For a time, it had seemed like she did not exist in the eyes of the world. "The kids saw the way the adults treated me," Naruto said. "Even to them, I was an outcast. It was like I was dirty, or had some kind of disease. No one wanted to come near me, at least not until I had spent several years in the academy. Kiba, Shikamaru, and Chuji hadn't cared. He was just a fellow slacker, if a stupid, but funny, one. For a while, he had dared to hope that he might have found friends. But no matter how much they seemed indifferent to the rumors and the stigma that surrounded him, none of them were ever willing to truly allow him in, to let him be their friend. He still wondered sometimes, did their parents say things about me? Most of his peers had been poisoned against him through their parents. But once several scorned him, the rest had quickly followed. Were they just afraid of what the other kids would say? Dirty. Unclean. Haku shuddered. To possess a bloodline limit in the land of water meant death. Those whose blood carried such traits were filthy. They were less than human. In the slums of the Hidden Mist, the filthy, ragged children that roamed the streets were the same as stray dogs. They didn't exist, except to kick out of the way one might kick a stray pebble on the street. But those who did acknowledge their existence represented death, mentally or physically, and for an unlucky few, both, dragged across slow and agonizing years, to any homeless children caught in the shadows. Thanks to Sandaimojikan, they couldn't touch me. But they made sure I knew how much they hated me. He took a deep, shuddering breath. I got tired of crying a long time ago, he continued quietly, looking Haku in the eyes. He glanced briefly, deliberately, at the knife and back. I even thought about that once or twice. But that's the easy way out, the coward's way out, and I won't ever let them get me down. Haku mentally recoiled. I'm not a coward, she wanted to scream. But she had no energy for it, no true passion or anger left within her. An overwhelming emptiness engulfed her like the morning fog rolling in from the ocean. She had nothing. She was nothing. Was it so wrong to just end it all? Naruto's voice bled hot with passion, I decided to become Hokage and I made that my dream even though most of the village wouldn't mind if I died. I'll force them to acknowledge me. I'll protect them with my life, no matter how much they hate me or how much they've hurt me. Naruto paused, his nostrils flaring as he sucked in a deep breath. I'll become Hokage, he repeated strongly. I'm not the stupid fox. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, damn it. I'll show that to everyone, no matter how hard it is or how long it takes. I'll show it to them, no matter what. Naruto shouted fiercely, his face red. He panted, trying to catch his breath. Haku tried to speak, but she couldn't form the words. Whatever the purpose of his speech was, it had certainly derailed her momentum. But her grief was too strong and too fresh to be put off for long. She looked away from him, breaking eye contact. I don't have anything left, she whispered. You still have your life, Naruto countered, his voice still somewhat breathless. As long as you have that, you can find new dreams, he continued with increasing strength as his breathing leveled off. My dreams were Zabuza-san's dreams. That's all. She stared down at the blood staining her yukata. Naruto nearly shouted in frustration. Haku still hadn't let go of the knife. Instead, he settled for a sigh as he looked at her. She was sitting so still, her posture still proper despite her trying to commit suicide. The moonlight from the window and the light from the hall only served to highlight how pale and fragile-looking she was. She was like a broken doll. I'm sure Zabuza wouldn't have wanted you to die, he said, hoping that might do it. It didn't. But Zabuza-san is dead, and my reason for living died with him. No one in the world needs me. Then I'll need you, Naruto blurted. He mentally paused, as his brain tried to unscramble what he just said. Haku's head whipped up, and she stared at him with the wide-eyed look that he was rapidly becoming familiar with. What, Ash? I don't want you to die, Naruto said quickly, his mouth moving before his brain caught up with it. Surprisingly, it was provoking a reaction from the girl, so Naruto followed his instincts and spoke from the heart. If you died, I would be really sad. So please, he begged her, live. If you need a reason to live, Naruto interjected quickly, hoping to head off another denial, then do it for me. If you have to be needed by someone, then I'll need you. In the shocked silence that followed, he slowly raised his hand and brought it down slowly to rest on top of her head. What am I doing? Naruto wondered even as he patted her head in what he hoped was a reassuring gesture. He had seen fathers do that to their children back in Konoha, so he figured it was a good thing. Of course, he was 12 and she was more like 15, so it would probably be awkward if the situation was not already so bizarre and tense. I need you, Naruto declared firmly. Haku, who had been staring down at her lap, snapped her head around and stared intently into his eyes as if trying to read his mind. Naruto met her searching gaze with what he hoped was a steady, reassuring look. He took a deep breath. I swear, by the pain in the blood of my right hand, he paused as a feeling of déjà vu swept through him, that for as long as I am alive, I will need you. Immediately after finishing his statement, he felt vaguely embarrassed by his grandiose vow. But it sounded like something a proper hero would say, so he went with it. Again, his mouth moved before his brain could formulate his next statement. Will you follow me? He paused again. That didn't come out quite right. Yes, Haku murmured, still staring at him with wide hazel eyes. Please live. Wait, what? Did I hear that right? Slowly, her grip eased on the knife. Naruto plucked it from her grasp before she could second-guess herself and moved it out of her reach. He turned back to find her still considering him intently. The emptiness and the pain seemed to be gone from her eyes, replaced by something Naruto wasn't familiar enough with to name. She tilted her head slightly and smiled at him. Yes, I'll follow you, Naruto-sama. The distant twinkling of stars dominated Naruto's vision. The moon was obscured by a dark, indistinct mass of clouds. Occasionally the clouds would break, and for a moment gentle silver rays of light would illuminate the land below. Naruto lay on the roof of the Takanaji home, his arms folded behind his head. He stared up at the dark night sky, taking no notice of the chill wind that combed invisible fingers through his messy hair. What am I doing? Naruto sighed. It was a question he had asked himself many times in the past few hours. The fallout of the incident with Haku, only a few hours past, seemed to become increasingly complex as he thought about it. Kakashi-sensei had sent him to watch over the injured Nuke-nin, but he had somehow ended up making her some sort of follower or something. Naruto still wasn't sure how that had happened. What would Kakashi-sensei make of things? He didn't even want to think about Sakura-chan's reaction, and who knew what Sasuke would think. Even worse were the reactions he knew she would receive in Konoha, should she follow him home. A Nuke-nin trailing after that Naruto? He doubted that she would be received warmly, but he had no idea what he could do to change that. What would she do in Konoha anyway? Naruto had no idea. But that was just the beginning of the worries that had begun to consume him. Being responsible for another human being was an incredibly heavy responsibility. It also terrified Naruto. He was only 12 years old and for most of his life, he had been alone. He was completely at a loss in regards to what he was supposed to do, but it's my responsibility, Naruto thought. I can't back down now, not after all of the things I said to her. It wasn't the first time his reckless mouth had gotten him into hot water, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. However, it was the first time that the trouble was so significant. There were no scolding authority figures or sneering adults, no punishments or rebukes, just an overwhelming responsibility that he had no choice but to bear. After all, he had already accepted it. Still, it made him uncomfortable. He had always dreamed about the day that someone would look up to him, respect him, and realize his worth. Now there was a pretty girl who seemed to have done just that. But Naruto knew deep down that it wasn't what he wanted. He hadn't truly earned her respect. He wasn't worthy of her devotion. Somehow he had ended up filling the void Zabuza had left in Haku's heart, but that was not what Naruto wanted. He was Naruto, not Zabuza. But it can't be helped, he thought unhappily. Not so soon after that no-brow died. There was a break in the dark mass of clouds overhead. The moon shone brightly down upon the wave country. She called me Naruto-sama, he murmured aloud. It was a happy thought, and after a moment Naruto grinned. Even if I haven't earned it yet, it's kind of nice. Naruto-sama, he said again, almost giddily. It was a heady reminder of what lay at the end of the road to Hokage. He would earn the respect of Konohagakure. One day, I'll be worthy of being called Naruto-sama, he thought determinedly. Naruto raised his right arm from behind his head and thrust it skyward, his hand curling into a fist. And one day, he declared, they'll call me Hokage-sama. Kakashi watched Sakura and Sasuke as they left towards the bridge with Tazuna. Sasuke had quite firmly declared that he had finished his recovery and demanded to be allowed to resume his duties. Kakashi knew that Sasuke's injuries still pained him. The stiffness in his movements was as plain as day. But the boy's eyes had shone with grim determination and his mouth had been set in a stubborn line. If he wants to spend his day escorting a drunk, sweaty old man, who am I to argue? Kakashi shrugged philosophically. Personally, he could think of many, many better ways to spend his day. Most of those involved Ika paradise in some way, but still, at least it didn't involve old drunk men, drunk young, and preferably pretty, women, however that was a different story. Kakashi dearly wished he could have at least one mission involving such a creature at least once before he died. So far he had no such luck, but perhaps one day the heavens would shine upon him. In the meantime, he had the acclaimed, in certain circles, at least, Ika series, his imagination, and 3 not-so-cute students to torture for his amusement. Kakashi took a moment to sigh wistfully as thoughts of hot drunk women circled his brain. He then shook his head, regretfully banishing his eki thoughts in favor of duty. Now that 2 of his 3 not-so-cute students had vanished from his line of sight, Kakashi turned his thoughts to his 3rd student. I guess I should check up on Naruto now, Kakashi thought reluctantly. Ika paradise, he thought longingly. Without any truly pressing duties, all he wanted to do was relax and read. Besides, his body still ached from the after effects of chakra exhaustion. Surely he deserved a break, right? Unfortunately, Kakashi knew that duty did not wait. Still, Kakashi thought deviously, there is a way to do both. He had refrained from doing so since they had entered the country of the wave, but there was no reason to hold back now with the main threat to their mission gone. It was a sight very foreign to the wave and very familiar in Konohagakure no Sato. Hatake Kakashi, the copy ninja, strolled casually through the dusty dirt roads of the town. He deftly navigated through crowds of people and around various obstacles, an impressive feat, considering that his single uncovered eye was engrossed in the pages of a bright orange book. Of course, his display of shinobi deftness was detracting by his giggling, blushing demeanor. His perverted chuckles and open appreciation of pornographic literature brought Kakashi a fair share of bizarre, and often outraged, looks. The frequent glances and whispered comments had no effect on Kakashi. He had long since mastered the ability of ignoring such accusing stares, allowing them to slide off of him like water off of a duck's back. Or Sasuke's head, Kakashi snickered, inordinately pleased by his wit. It probably took him longer than it should have to reach the Takanaji home, but Kakashi was in no hurry. When he reached the home-turn clinic, he paused outside. He listened carefully for a moment, channeling chakra into his ears to boost his hearing. After a few moments, he nodded to himself in satisfaction. There was nothing obviously wrong. Of course, that only meant that if something was amiss the perpetrator was simply skilled enough not to leave obvious cues. Kakashi entered the residence, making no attempt to mask his presence. If enemies had infiltrated the house they would have already been alerted to his presence. Despite his paranoid thoughts, he wasn't particularly surprised to find Kanako busy in the kitchen. He wouldn't have been very surprised if enemy shinobi had tried to ambush him at the front door either, but there were certain things that Jounin learned to take in stride. A quick stop to say hello rapidly turned into an involved conversation with Kanako and Jishiro. Kakashi did not bother to knock. He entered the room casually, appraising the situation as he did so. There were no signs that a violent confrontation had occurred in the room, despite the bloody knife and yukata that Kanako had shown him. Haku sat serenely on the hospital bed, her back propped up against the headboard. She looked alert and clear-minded, and her eyes had instantly begun studying him as soon as he had entered the room. Naruto was slumped in a chair against the far wall, and he looked up drowsily as the Jounin entered. Kakashi studied Naruto for a moment. The boy was clearly tired, given his bearing and the dark shadows under his eyes. Naruto's right hand was wrapped in bandages. The sight gave Kakashi a sense of déjà vu. It hadn't been long ago since Naruto's left hand had been bandaged in a similar fashion. He smiled faintly. In hindsight, it seemed like Naruto's wounding by the demon brothers and his subsequent hand injury was a lucky thing. It had been that wounded hand that allowed Naruto to find the courage to stand up to Zabuza. It was a lesson Kakashi couldn't teach, one his students each had to learn on their own. The ability to face death without panicking, to confront overwhelming odds and not turn their backs, it was something his team was just discovering. Naruto had learned it during Team 7's first confrontation with Zabuza. Sakura had yet to achieve it. Sasuke's hatred and trauma made him resistant to it in his own way. "Yo," Kakashi greeted his student casually. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto replied tiredly. "Good morning," Haku murmured, seemingly polite and earnest. Kakashi's eyebrows rose behind his height. He didn't sense any hostility from the girl, but that just made it stranger. After all, he was the one who had killed Zabuza, so it was definitely odd that she would greet him with civility. "Tired?" Kakashi asked Naruto, his head tilting slightly. Naruto grunted. "Did something happen last night?" Kakashi's tone was expectant. Naruto blinked before laughing nervously. His uninjured hand came up and rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Kakashi sighed inwardly. "He's so obvious. One of these days I should teach him how to hide his reactions better." It was good for Kakashi that Naruto was so easy to read, but it was definitely a negative in the long run for Naruto's career as a shinobi. "Well, just a bit," Naruto admitted. "Just a bit?" Kakashi echoed, cocking his head to the side inquisitively again. Naruto abruptly found his sandals very fascinating. He shot a quick, uncomfortable glance at Haku, only to see the girl smiling at him. The boy blinked. "Naruto-sama stopped me from making a serious mistake last night," Haku informed Kakashi nonchalantly. Kakashi made a questioning noise. Haku continued to smile, giving nothing away. "She has a lot more control over herself than Naruto," Kakashi noted, though he wasn't particularly pleased by this fact. It soon became apparent that she was not going to say any more, nor did it look like he would get an answer from Naruto anytime soon. After a moment, another thought occurred to him. "Naruto-sama?" Kakashi boggled on the inside. That someone would refer to Naruto in such a manner seemed outright bizarre to Kakashi. For a moment he turned his gaze back to Naruto. Yep. Still the same Naruto. Naruto had apparently forged a very strong impression in the kunoichi's mind, but Kakashi couldn't figure out how. He had a strong suspicion that it had to do with the prior night's events, but until he knew exactly what had happened he wouldn't know for sure. "Naruto, what happened to your hand? This?" Naruto shrugged. "I had an accident with a kunai," he said blandly. Now Kakashi was doubly suspicious. Since when did Naruto use that kind of tone? "An accident, huh?" "Yep," Naruto replied, his tone suddenly cheerful. "An accident." Kakashi sighed inaudibly. "Naruto," he began, injecting authority into his voice, "when my students get injured, I need to know what happened." Naruto frowned, shame mixing with rebellion in his expression. "Since a former enemy Nin is involved, it makes it even more critical for me to know." He somewhat regretted making a point about Haku's status like that, but he felt that Naruto needed to be reminded that they had been enemies only a short while ago. It was not wise to place so much trust so quickly in your foes, former or not. Naruto folded his arms and looked away from his teacher. His face was still set in a rebellious expression. "Naruto-sama," Haku murmured quietly, drawing the boy's attention. Her face was still calm and peaceful, showing no sign of the turmoil she was experiencing inside. Seeing Naruto's teacher, the man who had killed Zabuza, pressing him so hard upset her. She was angry with the man, though she controlled that emotion with the knowledge that he was only doing his job. Kakashi was a tool of his village, just like she had been Zabuza-san's tool. Haku was also upset because Naruto was being put in an uncomfortable situation because of her actions. Naruto had saved her life and given her a new purpose. Even now he was protecting her, hiding her shame from his own mentor. She was his tool now, which meant that she should be protecting him, not the other way around. It was that thought that gave her determination. Haku really didn't want Kakashi to know about her despair and weakness the previous night, but she also wanted to deflect his attention from Naruto. It was clear that the Jounin would push until he got answers. "It's alright," she said finally, breaking the silence that had developed after her interjection. Naruto frowned. But, she smiled reassuringly, despite the unease she felt. "It's alright," she said again. Kakashi frowned at their interaction. One of the most important skills a shinobi could possess was the ability to look underneath the underneath. Sensing and understanding the multiple layers of meaning in people's words and the motivations behind their actions was critical for survival in the long run. It also made for a much more effective shinobi. Right now, Kakashi could sense deeper currents of meaning behind their conversation, but he didn't understand it. "It's been one night," he thought to himself. How could they have formed such a deep understanding? Kakashi did not know of Haku's past, nor could he have truly understood even if he did know. He was one of Konoha's most skillful jounin, and he had fought and lived through the last great shinobi war. He had taken countless lives and he had seen many horrible things, but he had never been treated as Naruto and Haku had. Kakashi could not truly understand because he had no similar experience. He knew the pain of being orphaned, but he did not know the pain and the despair of having an entire population focusing their hate and their scorn upon him while growing up. He had always been praised as a genius and a prodigy, so he could not truly comprehend Naruto's hurt at being scorned, mocked, and overlooked for the entirety of his ninja career. Kakashi's father had committed suicide and abandoned him at a young age, but he didn't know the pain of having his father attempt to kill him like Haku had. I got cut stopping her from killing herself, Naruto said quietly, his eyes meeting Kakashi's again. That's all, I see. Kakashi regretted putting Naruto on the spot, especially considering that it had apparently been an emotionally trying night for the boy. Even so, it was something he had to confirm. He now had an important insight into Haku's mental state as well as the knowledge that she had not tried to attack Naruto. He turned to look at Haku. You're all right now? He asked. In other words, are you going to try and commit suicide again? Haku thought, not without a touch of bitterness. Yes, she said aloud in answer to his question. Kakashi eyed her for a few more moments before nodding. He turned his attention back to Naruto. You should go rest. I'll guard her today. Haku blanched. Staying alone in the same room with the copy ninja did not appeal to her at all. Deep down, she was both afraid of him and furious at him. If she didn't spend the day silently battling apprehension, she might end up with her hands around his throat before she could consciously think about it. Either way, she didn't want to be alone with him. The injured girl gazed at Naruto, pleading him with her eyes not to leave her alone with the jounin. Naruto couldn't read her mind, but he could tell what she was thinking anyway. I want to stay here, Naruto told his sensei. The man hesitated. Please, Naruto looked at Kakashi with pleading eyes to match Haku's. You're obviously exhausted. What good are you as a guard in that condition? She won't try to run away, Naruto retorted. Kakashi nearly snorted in disbelief, but Naruto's supremely confident tone stopped him. Even Naruto wouldn't be that confident without reason, right? A second later, he sighed inwardly. Of course he would. He's Naruto. You know, Kakashi began, adopting a lecturing tone. I will not run, Haku interjected firmly. I will follow Naruto-sama for the rest of my life. She met Kakashi's disbelieving stare evenly. Even Kakashi, a man incredibly adept at controlling his reactions, couldn't help but openly gape. Of course, the mask obscured it, but it was a telling indication of his level of surprise that he would show his honest reaction so openly. Inwardly he wondered, how am I supposed to react to a statement like that? Having someone seriously call the blonde genin Naruto-sama was one thing, having Naruto gain an apparently devoted, lifelong follower was an entirely different story. Haku was a competent and intelligent shinobi in her own right, and she was clearly experienced at the job. She was also older, more talented, and more skillful than the boy. Besides, Naruto is not exactly what you'd call a great leader right now. It just did not compute. Naruto frowned, seeing how hard of a time Kakashi was having trying to wrap his mind around the concept. Why is it so hard to believe? Naruto wondered grumpily, temporarily forgetting his own doubts about the issue. He cleared his throat forcefully, breaking Kakashi out of his stupor. I see, Kakashi managed finally. It took him a few more moments to recover his composure. Naruto, he said when he had finally achieved his normal expression again, since that is the case, she's your responsibility. He still did not trust Haku, and he was far from convinced that leaving her alone with Naruto, who was clearly exhausted and in no condition to fight, was a good idea. Yet, against his better judgment, he found himself agreeing. I know, Kakashi blinked at how glum his student sounded. I would have thought that he'd be leaping for joy at finding someone who respects him so much. He looked at Haku to see her reaction to Naruto's tone, but if she recognized it, she gave no sign of being offended. She wore a slightly eerie smile. It's your responsibility to make sure she doesn't escape or hurt anyone. Of course, that includes herself. He paused to see if there was any reaction to that, but Naruto just nodded. You have to take care of her while we're here. Once we get back to Konoha, well, we'll deal with that when we get there. The jounin paused again and looked at Haku. Will you be coming with us to Konoha? Yes, Haku said, nodding in affirmation. He sighed inwardly. This is going to cause trouble, I know it. Kakashi had no idea how the Sandaime would react to this situation. He winced inwardly. If the Hokage was displeased with this, it would be on his head. He didn't even want to think about the silent temper tantrum that Sasuke would throw, and if Sasuke was angry then Sakura was angry as well. I just hope this doesn't hurt their teamwork. Do you understand, Naruto? Kakashi cocked his head inquisitively. I understand, the boy said solemnly. He grinned brightly and for a moment the old Naruto came forward. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei, Kakashi grunted in acknowledgement. He paused at the doorway and turned to look at Naruto over his shoulder. He smiled mischievously. I'll leave you two alone now. Kakashi made a brief gesture with his hand, and even without that his tone was so suggestive that even the notoriously dense Naruto understood the innuendo. The boy blushed and his mouth worked, temporarily at a loss for words. Haku giggled, though her cheeks were pink as well. Kakashi left with a smug smile on his face. Leaving the loud-mouthed genin at a loss for words was just plain fun. Of course, Naruto could never stay silent for long when provoked. Kakashi hadn't made it halfway down the hallway before Naruto's peeved shout erupted from behind him. "Kakashi-sensei!" Sakura crouched warily on the strong, weathered tree branch and cautiously scanned her surroundings. He was nearby. Sakura just knew it. She didn't stay on the branch for long, instead leaping forward again to the next tree. It became a rhythm. Chakra flowed through her legs in a steady, tightly regulated stream that was punctuated by slight bursts, as she performed leaps that were far outside of normal human ability. Occasionally she would eject chakra from her feet, carefully molding it so that it would stick to the rough bark of whatever tree she happened to be on at the moment. The kunoichi moved swiftly, but not without caution. Every few moments she would stop and pause, checking visually for tracks and traps, not to mention signs of an ambush. "Why are we doing this?" Sakura grumbled internally. She had first become short of breath a while ago. Indeed, it seemed like hours ago to the girl. Now she was sweating like a pig and her muscles trembled from exertion. Moreover, she was mentally tired from operating at a high level of alertness for an extended period of time. Of course, it was all Naruto's fault and Kakashi-sensei's as well. More than a month had passed since Team 7's clash with Zabuza and Gato on the still unfinished bridge. But while their main adversaries were dead, Team 7's mission was not yet over. The construction of the Great Bridge that would connect the country of the wave with the rest of the elemental countries was moving at a fast clip, but it still took time. The bridge had been more than 3/4 finished by the time the Konoha ninja had arrived. With the death of Gato, many of Tazuna's workers had returned to continue work. There had also been a large influx of fresh labor, as many of the citizens of the wave came to labor on the bridge that now represented their hopes for the future. However, even as the bridge grew closer to completion, Team 7 seemed to be drifting further and further apart. Sakura didn't understand it. Sasuke-kun seemed angry all of the time. She understood that his pride had been hurt in the fight on the bridge, but it had been a month since then. Sakura worried about him. The young Uchiha had changed so much since they had come to the wave. He had always been an aloof, arrogant boy, but there had always been an aura of sadness and tragedy around him. Sasuke-kun's mysterious inner pain had been one of his most attractive features. Most of the kunoichi who had shared classes with him agreed that his pain was the cause of his coldness, and that the kunoichi who circumvented that would be able to see the hurting boy within. But Sasuke's demeanor had changed. "He's always so angry now," Sakura thought unhappily. Even worse was that all of her attempts to cheer him up seemed to make him even more irritated. His sarcasm had grown almost malicious of late, especially when it was directed towards Naruto. Naruto, Sakura thought. He's the problem. Naruto was largely the cause of Sasuke-kun's anger, and all he did of late was fuel it. The blonde genin had become distant. Sasuke's biting insults had always brought strong reactions from Naruto, but in the past month it was like Naruto no longer cared. Seeing Naruto suddenly disregarding him had infuriated Sasuke, and the dark-haired boy had thrown himself into training as soon as his injuries had healed enough. That meant that Sakura saw Sasuke even less than usual, and she no longer had Naruto to take her frustrations out on. Naruto had also become a stranger to her. Not only were his actions of the bridge shocking and his unusual introspection unsettling, he had also taken to disappearing at random times. Usually he was with Haku. Sakura frowned. Haku was the other half of the problem. Haku was the catalyst that had prompted Naruto's actions. Moreover, her survival unsettled Sasuke-kun. Sakura knew that Sasuke felt humiliated by the girl because she had put him down using non-lethal force for the whole duration of their fight. Her survival denied Sasuke of a sense of closure. Haku's strange behavior after waking up was another issue that both Sakura and Sasuke had difficulty comprehending. Sakura didn't know what had happened between the strange kunoichi and Naruto, but whatever it was had led to Haku apparently deciding to follow Naruto around like a puppy. Sakura scowled, even as she absently leapt from branch to branch. She even calls him Naruto-sama, Sakura thought darkly. It was absurd. She was no stranger to insecurities. Sakura had had them for nearly all of her life. Her larger-than-average forehead had been a subject of open mockery by her peers until Ino had stepped in. Her unusual pink hair had also drawn comments. Chasing Sasuke and being friends with the pretty, popular, and talented Ino had never failed to prompt Sakura to doubt herself. But for the most part her sense of self-worth had risen strongly during her time in the academy. She wasn't as skilled as Ino in the practical application of many kunoichi skills, but none could match her grasp of the theoretical. She had repeatedly proven that she was smarter than Ino and, as she occasionally admitted to herself, smarter than Sasuke-kun as well. But her self-esteem had taken a nosedive during Team 7's first combat mission. Sakura felt that she had been useless on every encounter with enemy means so far. Even Naruto had shaped up after the attack by the Onikyodai, but she had done nothing in all 3 hostile encounters. Even worse was the feeling the near certainty that nothing she could have done would have made a difference. Sasuke's increasingly cold attitude didn't help. Usually he would simply ignore her advances, but recently he had begun to snap at her, which further eroded her confidence. That was not an entirely new thing. What was new was that she no longer had Naruto to fall back on. Even though she had never admitted it to herself, Naruto had probably been Sakura's biggest confidence booster. Having him chase her with such single-minded determination was annoying, but it was also flattering. It increased her sense of self-worth, because it showed that at least someone felt that she was worth chasing after despite her constant rejections and put-downs, despite the fact that Sasuke made her feel worthless every time he rejected her. But Naruto had been drifting away ever since they had fought Zabuza on the bridge. Now he spent most of his time with Haku, which left Sakura with a hollow feeling that she couldn't quite explain. It felt like something important had been taken from her, but that couldn't be right, since it was just Naruto. Occasionally, though, when she was alone at night in the darkness of her room, she could admit to herself that she missed him a bit. She had never felt so lonely in all of the years since Ino had become her friend as she had in the past month. Sasuke and Naruto were her teammates, regardless of what feelings she had or didn't have for each of them, and the feeling that they were drifting apart in opposite directions was depressing. Without Naruto around, Team 7 had become gloomy. Sasuke-kun's brooding tended to dominate the atmosphere without Naruto's brightness around to counteract it. Kakashi-sensei was no help at all. Even when Kakashi felt the urge to lighten the mood, his off-color jokes and teasing tended to be even more irritating and outrageous than Naruto's own stunts. The fact that she felt lonely with Naruto gone was a shocking revelation to Sakura. It was also one that she didn't dwell on too much. Instead, she focused her thoughts on Haku. Haku irritated Sakura. The new Nin was prettier than her, more developed than her, and more skilled than her. She seemed to be better than Sakura at everything. Moreover, she had seemingly stolen Naruto from Team 7, her apparent devotion to the boy aside. She also loomed larger in Sasuke-kun's thoughts than Sakura did, even if Sasuke's thoughts about her were far darker than Sakura would wish for herself. Sakura felt alone and inferior. She felt like she was fading into the background. She envied Haku not only for her superior looks and skills, but also for the way she seemed to have everyone's attention. Sakura suddenly felt she understood all too well the reason why Naruto had donned his garish orange jumpsuit and taken to pranks. He had been screaming for attention through his actions, and it was something Sakura herself wanted to do for the first time in her life. For some reason, her new insight into Naruto's character just made her unhappier. It shouldn't have, since she had become curious about his seemingly contradictory nature in the past month, but it did, because now I understand why he acted that way, Sakura realized. I didn't before, but I do now. And now I wonder if he really deserved to be treated the way I treated him. Guilt curled uncomfortably in her chest for a moment. Being able to relate to some part of Naruto's loneliness had given her an uncomfortable insight into how he must have felt when his peers alternatively ignored him and mocked him. It's just like Sasuke-kun said, Sakura thought gloomily, I don't understand. She remembered his rebuke on their first day as genin all too clearly. That solitude. Sakura stared at Sasuke-kun's back. What? You can't even compare it with the sadness of your parents getting mad at you. There was a dark tone to his voice that Sakura had never heard before. What's wrong? Sakura raised her arm in front of her, almost as if making a warning gesture. He looked over his shoulder at her, his eyes narrowed. You're annoying. Sakura's eyes grew wider, her expression both horrified and disbelieving. She could only stare numbly at Sasuke-kun's back as he walked away from her. His words had stung her harshly, and it had been the first time that she had been able to relate to Naruto's feelings even a little bit. She had resolved to be nicer to the blonde then, but when he walked by she had barely been able to force a few kind words out. His misunderstanding had destroyed any vestiges of goodwill she may have had towards him. Her consideration of Naruto's feelings had promptly been forgotten. Now she was in the same situation again. She had gained a bit of understanding about Naruto and his feelings and had resolved to be kinder in the future. But this time her understanding of him was deeper, and she was determined not to backslide into her old behavior. Of course, that was easier said than done. Sakura had been hunting Naruto for what seemed like hours as a part of Kakashi's new training exercise. It was essentially a game of tag, except that it had very little in the way of rules and was endlessly more frustrating. They had drawn straws to determine which of the three genin would hide. Naruto had picked the short straw and he had become it. Kakashi had restricted Naruto's hiding place to a square mile, most of which was forested. Naruto had been given an hour to hide and prepare the ground, which he had done quite thoroughly. Neither Sakura nor Sasuke had fully appreciated the sheer volume of traps Konoha's most unpredictable ninja could set up in an hour. Naruto's judicious use of Kage Bunshin had turned the training exercise into an exercise in frustration. The forest had been filled with a ridiculous amount of basic, and non-lethal, traps, and the tracks left by the Kage Bunshin had made tracking the real Naruto incredibly difficult. Instead of minimizing his presence, and leaving no traces of himself, Naruto had chosen to create so many tracks and traces of his passing that it was nearly impossible to rule any out as decoys. Moreover, Kage Bunshin still roamed through the forest in small numbers, distracting Naruto's teammates. The confusion had slowed down Sakura greatly. She didn't know where Sasuke was. Without his terse, infrequent reports over the radio, she would have had no idea if he was even still participating. Still, between the two of them they had been steadily tightening the circle around Naruto, and there was little room left for the hunted boy to maneuver. Sakura's fingers were twitching in anticipation. Naruto had turned such a simple training exercise into a brutal training course, and Sakura was itching to repay him for ruining her day. Only her previous thoughts about being kinder to Naruto prevented her from dwelling on a cathartic, for her anyway, beating. Still, she would relish the moment when the time came to subdue and secure him. Sakura, Sasuke's voice crackled as the wireless headset came to life. She nearly lost her footing in surprise, though she was able to recover smoothly and leap to the next branch without losing much momentum. Sasuke-kun! Sakura exclaimed in surprise. What is it, Naruto? He answered in a tone of grim satisfaction. You found him. As expected of Sasuke-kun. Yeah. It's not a Kage Bunshin this time. He's in Grid E6, heading southeast. Cut him off. Roger, she answered crisply, but Sasuke had already cut the connection. Sakura quickly checked her map and smirked. It's over for you, Naruto. Sasuke pursued Naruto doggedly, utilizing his newfound chakra control to boost his speed in short bursts. Naruto grinned. He had that skill as well, and he had mastered the Swayman Hoku no Waza 2 weeks before Sasuke had learned it. It had taken Sasuke a single glance to learn the skill, but Naruto had put in many hours of practice over the past month. Water walking had become nearly instinctive to the orange-clad genin, and many hours of practice had given Naruto a substantial boost to his chakra-controlling abilities. Naruto was also quite used to running away from pursuers. It was not hard for him to maintain a decent distance from Sasuke. The only problem was that he could not increase the distance between them easily. Sasuke's Sharingan enabled him to spot and avoid Naruto's traps and Kage Bunshin with ease. The constant pressure exerted by Sasuke's pursuit diverted Naruto's attention from what was in front of him. Naruto didn't notice the scowling pink-haired girl that was moving to intercept him from the front. Or rather, he did notice, but not until a powerful right hook smashed into his jaw and sent him careening to the ground. Naruto groaned, but the sound was muffled by his swollen jaw. He twitched, only vaguely aware of Sakura and Sasuke landing on the ground nearby. It hurts, Naruto thought dizzily. His loss of awareness might have been fortunate, for he missed the sight of steel wire stretching out tautly and the almost sinister looks his teammates had donned. 15 minutes later, Sakura and Sasuke had arrived back at Tazuna's home, a tightly bound Naruto being carried roughly between them. Kakashi blinked at the sight before chuckling. The sudden twitching of Sakura's right eyebrow at Kakashi's amusement only served to make the jounin laugh harder. Naruto was bound and gagged tightly. The abundance of steel wire wrapped around his torso almost looked like a cocoon. Naruto's wiggling struggle only further enhanced his larvae-like appearance. Sakura and Sasuke were both clearly exhausted. They were dirty and scratched, and there was a sort of vindictive satisfaction on their faces as they watched Naruto squirm on the ground. Well, Kakashi said after his chuckling died down, it looks like the training exercise was worthwhile after all. He clapped his hands together in mock delight. But Kakashi continued, letting the word hang in air for a moment, you took way too long to catch Naruto. He frowned at the two standing genin. But we caught him before noon, Sakura protested. Noon had been Kakashi's time limit on the exercise. Had Naruto evaded capture until midday, he would have won. That's only an hour away, Kakashi replied. That means it took you 4 hours to chase down Naruto. He shook his head in disappointment. Sakura reddened. She looks like she's about to explode, Kakashi observed warily. Sakura's enraged voice was painful on the ears, and the jounin had little desire to deal with her rage. He was saved by Sasuke. We caught him in the end, didn't we? Sasuke glared at his teacher, as if daring him to contradict that statement. Well, Kakashi made a show of deliberating about it. He was inordinately pleased to see even the normally stoic Sasuke begin quivering in anger. Clearly, Sakura and Sasuke were in no mood for his games, but it was just so fun to irritate them. His genin were so easy to tease. It was almost too easy to be fun almost. I suppose, he concluded reluctantly. Kakashi sighed discontentedly. I was looking forward to our remedial training session too. Can we go in now? Sakura complained. I need a shower. Sure. The two worn genin trudged inside. Kakashi crouched down next to Naruto, smiling as he did so. He met Naruto's angry glare with a cheerful look. It looks like you're the only one who needs a remedial training session, Kakashi told Naruto. The boy blanched and shook his head frantically. You let them catch you, Kakashi retorted, even though you had an hour to prepare the area. Obviously you need to practice your evasion skills more. Kakashi grinned maliciously and lifted the squirming bundle that was Naruto and tossed him over his shoulder. This is going to be amusing. Stupid Kakashi-sensei, Naruto muttered angrily. He was covered with scratches and shallow cuts from where Kakashi's kunai had come too close for comfort. Apparently Kakashi's idea of evasion training was to give Naruto a 5-minute head start before sending a pack of dogs out to chase the genin, while he himself periodically flung kunai and shuriken to keep him on his toes. It had been a grueling couple of hours and Naruto wanted nothing more than to curl up and sleep. But I can't, Naruto thought in determination, because it's training time. His determination to grow stronger demanded that he not miss a single day of training if he could help it. Naruto had been training hard all month, but clearly it had not been enough. Kakashi-sensei was right. I shouldn't have been caught. Naruto grimaced, remembering the humiliating way he had been bound. He hated being tied up with a passion. Naruto hated feeling helpless, unable to do anything, and being tied up brought that feeling in force. But his failure only motivated him to train harder. That was why he was in the forest again looking for a good spot to train, despite Kakashi-sensei's torturous training session, though it might have been more appropriate to call it a punishment session instead. He found a good spot easily, but his limbs were weak with exertion by the time he stopped there. Naruto sighed. A short rest won't hurt, he reasoned. Naruto's energy and strength would return after a short break. That was how it had always been. He sat back against a solid tree trunk, savoring the cool, gentle breeze that blew through the woods. Branches rustled overhead and thousands of leaves whispered as the wind caressed them. Naruto relaxed as the soothing noises washed over him. Haku would like this, he thought drowsily. Naruto had spent a great deal of time with the Nuke Nin over the past month. He had gotten to know her better during that time, and he knew that she enjoyed nature. A walk through the strangely idyllic forest on a pleasant day was an activity that she would love. I should bring her here. It was surprising at how pleasant he found the thought of showing her the forest. But then Naruto had never really had anyone to share anything with, other than Iruka. Thinking about Iruka brought an abrupt feeling of homesickness. He missed his mentor. Naruto absently wondered what Iruka would think about the mission. What would he say when Naruto told him about the death of Gato and several of his mercenaries? Naruto knew rationally that the older man wouldn't blame him or hold it against him, but some part of him worried that Iruka would take it as the act of a monster. After all, he had been using the Kyuubi's chakra in that fight, and it was the Kyuubi that had killed Iruka's parents. Naruto shook his head, trying to banish those depressing thoughts. Iruka-sensei wouldn't think like that, he told himself. He knows that I'm not the stupid fox. It was a reassuring thought, but what would he think about Haku? Naruto was less certain, especially since he hardly knew what to think of that himself. Haku's injuries had healed at a fast rate, and she was almost totally recovered. It would still be a while before it was safe for her to utilize her shinobi talents, since the stress on her body might reopen the wound or cause internal bleeding, but it wouldn't be long. Her body was healing, and her mind seemed to be healing as well. It seemed like she was recovering from the mental wounds that Zabuza's death had dealt, but Naruto wasn't entirely sure. There were moments where she seemed odd, where her behavior didn't match up, but Naruto generally only caught brief glimpses of these moments, and he did not understand what they meant. She also had some other strange quirks, though he didn't know if she had always had them or had recently developed them. Haku seemed oddly nervous around everyone but Naruto. When others came near her, she seemed almost skittish. She hid it well, but Naruto could tell, mostly because he had once been like that. It was the behavior of a victim anticipating violence. Still, he didn't understand why she behaved like that. He knew something of her past, but in the present she was a highly competent ninja. It would not be easy to inflict violence upon her, and she had to know that. Kakashi-sensei was the only person in the wave that Naruto knew who could conceivably do so and have a good chance of escaping with his life. But Naruto knew that Kakashi-sensei would never do so as long as she wasn't a direct threat, and Haku was definitely smart enough to know that as well. Besides, why was he the only one she didn't act like that around? Her behavior just didn't add up. She also seemed to think that he would disappear and never come back if she let him out of her sight. Getting away to train during the day was, in the words of his lazy classmate Shikamaru, troublesome. Haku was almost clingy. Naruto did not know what to make of that. The closest behavior he had seen was the way Sakura, Ino, and the other kunoichi of their year had behaved towards Sasuke, but that wasn't quite right either. Now that she was recovering, she seemed to want to follow him everywhere in order to keep him in her sight. He could still get away with going out alone since she still was not in perfect health, but soon that would not be an excuse. It was surprisingly wearing to have someone want his company so much. Sometimes it nearly brought him to tears that someone could want him to be around that much. Other times it just wore on his nerves. Naruto had yearned for warm companionship and company for most of his life, but in that time he had gotten used to being independent. He had never had to worry about anyone else before, nor had anyone ever been reliant upon him. It was something he had craved, but the reality of it was different from his dreams. Naruto was ecstatic that he now had such a bond, but the limitations it placed on him chafed. Still, he couldn't run away from it. I promised. Promises were important to Naruto. He had failed so many times to live up to his own promises to improve. Few people had ever made any promises with Naruto, and even fewer had kept their word. Naruto knew intimately the shame that came from failing to uphold a promise. Likewise, he was also closely acquainted with the disappointment and pain that came from others failing to uphold their promises with him. Naruto's determination to uphold his promises to others came from his own negative experiences. However, there was one incident that truly stuck at the heart of the matter. Naruto had sworn in front of his teammates that he would not be a burden, that he would not run away or need saving. Yet, in their first encounter with Zabuza, Naruto had very nearly broken the oath he had sworn on the pain of his left hand. He had nearly fled from the battle like a coward, too intimidated by the new Nin to do anything but quiver in fear. Naruto had come very close to abandoning his teammates and Tazuna to what had seemed like certain death. Even worse was the realization that they seemed to have expected him to do just that. He was a coward in their eyes, and his word meant less than nothing. It was that experience that had truly served to solidify the determination within him. He would show them that his promises meant something, that he was not simply a cowardly braggart. "I will not go back on my word," he had sworn inwardly with fierce resolve. There was no warning, no feeling of killing intent, just the faint whisper of a taut chain slicing through air. Naruto leapt to his feet and pulled out a kunai, but it was too late. "What?" Naruto exclaimed fearfully. Bladed chains dug into his flesh and blood began to seep through his clothes. He struggled frantically to move, opening more wounds in the process, but the chains had wrapped firmly around him and he was pinned to the tree. He looked around frantically, but there was nothing in the clearing. Suddenly there was something at his right ear, the dark familiar sound of a voice muffled by a water respirator. The second one was the dark-cloaked ninja's grim pronouncement. Naruto's eyes widened in shocked recognition, yonder the chains tightened with explosive force. Naruto barely had time to scream. The tree toppled and a cloud of sawdust and dirt was kicked up in its place. "Heh," a second shape scoffed. "No one saved you this time." Like the first ninja, his lower face was covered with a black water respirator. Unlike the first, he wore no cloak, and the dirty brown camouflage of his uniform contrasted greatly with the gleaming metal of his gauntlet. He looked to his partner. "Our revenge for our defeat and the death of Zabuza-sama has begun. Only 3 more to go, right?" He frowned when his partner did not respond. "Aniki?" "No, Gozu," the elder of the Onikyodai growled. He tensed, his eyes scanning the area. "He's not dead." "What?" "But he's Meizu," the younger demon brother, trailed off. His eyes widened as he beheld the finely sliced log. He scowled. "Kawarimi, idiots." The Onikyodai turned sharply in unison towards the direction the mocking voice had come from. Uzumaki Naruto grinned at their obvious anger from his treetop vantage point. "You're too slow," he mocked again. Inwardly he was cursing. It was true that he had been far too inattentive of his surroundings, but it was also true that the 2 new Nin were faster than him. Weren't the Anbu supposed to have picked these 2 up? Naruto wondered anxiously. It was only due to luck and pure desperation that he'd been able to use the Kawarimi no Jutsu in time. His mind worked frantically. He now knew enough about his strengths and weaknesses to know that he could not take on 2 Chunin, especially 2 Chunin with such finely honed teamwork, and win in a direct fight. "So I'll have to get sneaky," he thought grimly. Gozu and Meizu had not taken kindly to Naruto's taunts. They were closing quickly on his position, alarmingly quickly. Naruto brought his hands together. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." He leapt from the treetop along with more than a dozen Kage Bunshin to meet the brothers' charge. The chain snapped and whirled through the air. 4 Kage Bunshin exploded in puffs of smoke. 6 more collided violently with the Onikyodai in midair, while Naruto and 2 other clones dropped past them. "I'm behind." 3 kunai, then 6 sailed up at the demon brothers' unguarded backs. The brothers turned smoothly in unison, using each other to turn in midair, and suddenly the 6 Kage Bunshin that had attacked them were between them and the kunai. "Shit," Naruto cursed. The Kage Bunshin exploded and the kunai fell back towards the earth, their momentum cancelled. "I need space," he thought frantically as the brothers began to race down the tree. 2 Kage Bunshin swiftly charged up the tree trunk. "Too easy," Gozu sneered. The giant, clawed gauntlet on his right arm flashed forward and 2 more Kage Bunshin died. Naruto frowned even as he rapidly backpedaled across the clearing. "Those claws give them a lot more reach than me," he realized. Naruto whirled abruptly and leaped in another reversal of direction. A clawed fist slammed violently into the ground he had just vacated. Meizu grinned darkly. Naruto had to consciously push down the rising panic bubbling up within him. With Meizu in front of him and Gozu behind him, he was in an extremely vulnerable position. Moreover, the long, sawed chain was stretched taut between the 2 brothers. It hung, an intimidating vision all on its own, on Naruto's right. Abruptly, Naruto recalled the way Kakashi, or at least, a log that had looked like Kakashi for a few moments, had been wrapped up in chains by the demon brothers.